All right, guys. Well, thank y'all for joining me. Welcome to the Vibe Realty Drop Zone podcast. And we've got Mike Murphy and Josh Bates here today. And we're just going to chat and see where it takes us. No topics. We kind of talked about that a little bit.
Free flow.
It's a free flow deal. I know that drives Mike crazy, but it's I was thinking about why do I like that so much, and a lot of people think there's pressure from not having topics and just having to figure it out as you go, and it's just the opposite for me for some reason. I don't know what it is. It's like there's no pressure because there's no expectations. And it was interesting when we talked this morning, and you're like, you're the only one on the planet that thinks that. And I said, well, it's not true because Aubrey, the engineer here, literally called me last week and said that last podcast was just gold and just free flow and went wherever, and I had no topic at all. And I think there's something to it. I think it's like for me, it seems like free flow, and that seems to be super popular now, is if you think about the Stoics and the philosophers of old, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they would they had their times when they were very measured and prepared and all that, but they would just think about things, they would just be out in a field or be somewhere and talk about things, the old saying, does a tree make a sound if it falls in the forest and no one hears it? And I think there's something in our brains that wants that. I think we really want that today because we're so prepared. We are so super prepared. So anyway, that's, just my thoughts on it. What do y'all think?
I think it's awesome that you just compared yourself to...
You like how I did that?
To
three Greek philosophers.
Yeah.
He has the hair in common.
That's true. That's true. You're in some fine company, sir.
No.
With those
And you're more the size of Confucius. I'm sort of surprised you actually compared yourself to a Greek philosopher.
Man.
With that, I'll say cheers.
You don't regret doing this
I'll
podcast.
say cheers.
Cheers. No, I think you're right. I think that that everybody is in a hyper aware state of everything that's going on socially. They over prepare for things.
Yeah.
Then they freak themselves out a little bit.
Right.
I think that doing things off the cuff sometimes. I think that people train to do things off the cuff. I think that
It's true.
In the military setting, in particular.
True.
You're out doing a great exercise. One of the instructors comes up and says, "Bang, your leader's dead. Now
Yep.
what?"
Yeah.
And you have to plan for spontaneity a little bit.
Yeah.
And but acting in a spontaneous way and being effective in a spontaneous environment is challenging. And
Well, it's
to
still,
some people,
it's still measured though, right?
It's still measured.
There is.
yeah.
So I think that's a great point right there. And I probably didn't make it when we were talking that point, but we are prepared. Like, you know what I mean? Without having to study, like, what are we going to talk about? What's the subject? And am I knowledgeable on that, or do I need to brush up? I think you are. I mean, at 50-something years old, we kind of have and even young, like you're saying, when I was a young soldier and y'all were young Marines, you were trained. You have a body of work to pull from. So you are prepared, in some sense. But I like the free flow, and figure it out.
We've talked about this before. If you actually prepare for something that that's actually not preparation. That's called practice.
Yeah, true.
There's a big difference between preparing for something,
True.
which is mindset and how you're going to respond to something you may not know is going to happen,
Yeah.
and practice, which is actually doing something repetitively that you sort of know the outcome
Yep.
and you know the parameters that you're going to operate in.
Yeah.
That's practice. We could
Yeah.
all go to batting practice, but how do we prepare for a game?
Right.
So it's really interesting.
It
You and I
is.
get very granular on the psychology between things like preparation and practice.
Yeah, for sure, which I think is super fascinating. And, like, it's funny, like comparing to those philosophers and all, like, obviously there is no comparison to those guys. because I have their body of work to go off of, free flow thinking, like you said it. That's a thought process that we all know now. Yeah. It's like an original work of art or a song. Like we all know songs, but it's because they've been done before. Mm-hmm. I think and I love the fact that these artists, a lot of people say, man, I can't believe they just played a song or they did this and they make all this money doing it. And I'm like, how they should, because this song and it seems like you heard it a million times and you know how to sing it in their tone. They did it originally. That's amazing. And I guess I dig that so much that I love just free flow thinking and talking through things. And I love dissecting what people say. And like you said, we have some great conversations. I mean, we get granular on it, and it's like the masterminds, which, so this is the part, this sort of the preparation, like I want to invite everybody to come to the Vibrability Masterminds, and this is what we do. Pick a topic. I never want it prepared. I want it raw. I don't want people, because we're terrible these days, like you said, about everybody's planning and gets anxiety and this and that. It's like, you can just speak with no expectations. You're a little more honest and genuine, Mm-hmm. And I think that is a commodity these days because, again, we're so prepared, It's like, okay, everything we do has to be preparation from the time you're 5 years old and you go to school, right? You come out, you either go to college, you go to military, you do this, you go to your job, you have to study, you got to prepare, you got a sales meeting, you got a leadership meeting, you got this, and you're prepared and blah, blah, blah. We're always prepared, and I have no problem with those things. The military, training. You learn something, and then you train it, right? And like you're talking about, that's the difference on it.
That's practice.
Yeah, it's practice.
Preparation is the mindset.
Yeah, and I love the mindset side. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, if you know me and you know that that's the part I loved more than anything in the military. Like the military is okay, I'm proud to serve just like you guys. But I loved being a paratrooper, and I loved it because the one point that I've kind of figured that I love them, like I love jumping out and doing crazy stuff and blowing stuff up, but in the preparation to do those things, it was about that much fun, and it was days of preparation. Leave it to the military to fuck up the most fun in the world, blowing shit up and jumping out of planes. 5 hours to jump out of a fucking plane. And by the way, for all y'all that thinks that I jumped out of perfectly good airplanes, you are wrong. They are not perfectly good airplanes. They are absolute bucket of bolts. And so I was happy to come out of them. But I like
I know you've seen all the T-shirts now. They're sort of popular in the Marine Corps right now. The USMC, uncomplicated shit made complicated. That's right. That's pretty much explains it all right there.
That's exactly it, And
I feel like that at work sometimes. Yeah. And those things are actually critically necessary.
For sure.
But
yeah, for sure.
You sometimes feel like that because you can't move from A to B efficiently.
Oh my God.
Because you're introducing 19 more letters.
8.3, 8.4, and you're like, Christ, can we just rip on over to B and move on, And you're right, it is critically important though. I think it is, but I love the part about being a parent. The one thing that I've narrowed down thinking about it over the years was I love when they told me, and I bought into this, that you may have to go anywhere in the world in 18 hours. And we will drop you, and for 3 days you have to do whatever that mission is. Hold that ground, take that objective for 3 days. That's it. That's it. But I just thought, man, that's awesome. And it's like I liked it because there may not be a plan to that. If something pops off, the leaders were very good at planning, or so good at planning. But when something pops up like that, you have to have that. That preparation already done, and then you're just figuring out how to execute at the time. You know what I mean? And I love that. Yeah. I think that's cool, man. When we hit the ground, what are we doing? Trying not to die. You've always heard the great quotes out there from the greatest military history in the world, and I love, like, what's the one? Was it Bastogne, where the I think it was a general or a colonel, and he sent back to the German and said, tell them nuts. They said, you're surrounded by superior force and superior numbers, and so I'm going to give you as an officer and a gentleman an opportunity to surrender.
I think he said like "aw shucks" or something really funny. It was really off.
Well,
like, whatever.
It was an underling. It was one of his. It was one of his lieutenants or somebody that said something about nuts before, and he said, "What? What did you say before?" Like you said, so what did you say before? He said nuts. He goes nuts. Yeah. He said, "Yeah, tell him nuts."
That's a great
Write
answer.
that down. And they wrote it down and sent it to him, and that was a lot of people will think about that and go, "That's just bravado," but it wasn't. He's like, now I know they're surrounded, and I know what our protocol is to do that, and we're just gonna execute and do it, you know.
Yeah.
And it didn't take a whole lot of, oh my God, what do I do? How do I plan? We've got to have time to do this. Figure it out. And he just pulled from his body of work confidently and said, "Tell them nuts. Now I know what to do. So I need y'all stage here, you know, and that kind of thing." So anyway, I think that's why I do it. I just love that. I love the free flow side of it, but I'm not opposed to the planning and all the other things. But and part of this too is I want people just to get to know us. You know what I mean? When people come on here, I just want to know you. I know y'all are smart. I know you're, you know, good at what you do, you know, and blah, blah, blah. I want to get to know you personally, you know?
It's like we've met twice now,
Yeah.
but I actually don't know what you do and how things like what we're talking about now applies to you in your daily professional environment, home environment. And those are all interesting things. Like, how do you use things like preparation versus practice at work? And how do you move through your day and what matters to you? And I love that kind of stuff.
Me too.
Yeah.
And so that's a great way let's go ahead and do that. So talk about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed real estate broker. Have been a broker for several years now. Got licensed in real estate in 2009 in Florida.
Wow, what a
Ended
time
up
that
moving.
was.
Yeah, it was a terrible time for real estate, but a perfect time to learn real estate.
Yeah.
Where in Florida?
In Gainesville.
Okay.
Yeah, so the central part of Florida, home of the Gators.
Are you a Gators fan?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a Gators fan. Did
Yeah.
not attend University of Florida. I went to Embry-Riddle, and then went to Colorado Tech, and ended up getting another degree from there.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Embry-Riddle's
so
it's an aeronautical school,
It's an
right?
aeronautical school, yeah. I initially thought I was going to be a pilot.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
Yeah, and I got injured in combat, and so the FAA said, no, sir,
Right.
you're not going to be a pilot.
Right.
At least not a commercial pilot. I can fly myself around just fine.
Yeah.
But
Right.
But they didn't trust that the explosions and paralysis and some of those things were going to actually keep me airworthy
Right.
and keep people safe in the air, which looking back on it in hindsight,
Yeah.
I can understand where they're coming from.
Probably a jagged pill to swallow because it's you personally, but overall, from a 30,000 foot
Yeah.
view, you're like, yeah, I
Yeah,
get
that was a slice of humble pie for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Hold on 2 seconds, guys. Get this more in front of you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
There we go. He's right into it. You guys are back off a little bit. All right,
Right on.
you're good.
So when were you at Embry-Riddle?
Resume.
Started Embry-Riddle in 2006, 2007. So, yeah, it's been, I guess, 4 years or so there. And I wasn't actually on campus. So this is while I was still in the Marine Corps. So I deployed to Iraq in 2006, got wounded in combat, ended up rotating back home, medevaced. Had to go through some speech therapy in California at Scripps and Encinitas. And through part of my therapy, my ongoing therapy, I ended up enrolling in college. And so I was kind of off the books with my unit. I was on the books, but I wasn't showing up to every single formation because
Yeah.
I had so many appointments that it was just like, call and check in with the
We call that
platoon sergeant.
profile in the Army.
Yeah.
Like your own profile, it's still your unit, and you still have to check in, and
Yeah.
you're accountable, but you're not showing up for duty every day. You're doing what you
Correct.
need to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so started going to college there and did really well. That's where I learned that I was actually pretty good at math.
So you were out on, I'm sure you were remote doing it, but they still have 2 campuses, right?
Yeah, they've got one in Prescott, Arizona, I believe, and they've got
one
one
in
in
Daytona.
Daytona Beach.
Yep.
Yeah. The physical campuses, and then they've got the worldwide campuses all over the place.
I have a very, very good friend that went to Embry-Riddle. He's older than we are. And then he flew for Delta for years and years and years and years. Mike Keogh.
Oh, Mike Keogh. Did he go
Just
to
retired.
Embry-Riddle? Wow.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did.
And he was a naval aviator.
He's
as
a
well.
naval aviator. He flew God, I hope I don't get this right. I knew he flew A4s, and I think he flew S3s after that, and then got out and flew for Delta.
That's pretty cool.
MD-88s.
It's an interesting thread. You know, I said when I was I was exploring. You know, do I get out? Do I stay in? What do I want to do? And I was a combat engineer, so I blew stuff up, and I love jumping and doing all that. It's fun to do the hula stuff.
Sure.
Early on, you know, like I was like, I just want to be a soldier and do crazy cool stuff. I'm not trying to plan for my whole future here. Just want to do some cool shit. And it was extremely cool. And then when I started thinking about, am I going to stay in or what? I went and I was taking the flight physical. I wanted to. They were like, go to OCS. I'm like, I don't want to be an officer. Said, go. We'll go do this. You know, would you want to do this, that, and the other, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'd love to fly. And I could honestly, I would have, if I could have flown, I would have stayed in for 30 or 40 years. And I was like, I'll fly. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chinooks carrying latrines around. I don't care. If I could fly, I would have stayed in for it. You know, everybody wants to be a combat pilot and all this. And yeah, I'm sure that's awesome, you know, but it was like, if I can just fly, my vision was bad. They're like, you can't. So it sort of killed that dream. But it's interesting how there's a thread where we all love flying, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's something as a kid, I mean, my eyes were always to the sky.
Yeah.
You know, love air shows, I mean, I could tell you different kinds of airplanes and the characteristics of them and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so it's kind of fun. I'm sure that's not unlike a bunch of the population. So I don't think I'm unique in any way. I think flying's fascinating.
Right.
And so do a lot of people. So
I think you're right. This guy knows a ton of planes. He's always saying, that's this and this and this.
Yeah.
Like,
That's why I was interested when you said Florida. I grew up in Lakeland, which is Sun and Fun.
Yeah.
So it was an old.
Yeah,
when I was a kid, it
fantastic
was
airplane.
just warbirds. It was not this massive international.
Right.
Actually, I even take that back. When I was a kid, it started as just experimental. Sun and Fun was just an experimental show.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so they had all these little experimental airplanes, and then it sort of
Is
rolled
that
into warbirds.
Is
and then
that
it's a full-blown show?
a air show in Lakeland? Okay.
Huge. Sun and Fun may be the biggest air show in the South now. It's a massive show.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
That's cool.
It's sort of like I think a mini Oshkosh.
Wow.
So,
I've heard of that for
but
sure.
yeah.
So timeline it for us. You know, high school, graduated high school, and then kind of just chronologically.
Yeah, graduated high school in 1990, went in the Marine Corps, did my first tour in the Marine Corps, and got out in.
What was your MOS and your
94.
job?
I was initially in 0311. I was an infantryman.
Okay.
And then got to go to tow school. It was an 0352, so shot tow missiles. It's a wire guided. Now it's wireless.
I remember.
But
that
it's an
little fine wire.
anti-tank, anti-armor type missile.
Very cool.
Ended up getting out, went into law enforcement, got to work at a state prison down in Hendry County, Florida. It was absolutely miserable. Man, what a terrible.
Where's Henry County?
It's kind of, it borders Collier County. So if you know where Naples is at, if you go inland, Hendry's inland.
Gotcha.
So,
Henry.
Yeah, nothing out there but a bunch of cow pastures when I was there. I'm sure it's probably not changed much.
It's amazing how country Florida is.
In certain places, if you get away from the coast,
Yeah.
it gets very, very agricultural.
I love the equestrian part of it in the middle when you're going down 75 and all
Absolutely.
that. It's beautiful
It's
farms
beautiful,
and
beautiful
crazy.
land.
Here's your dumb trivia. Florida is the largest producer of beef livestock east of the Mississippi.
No kidding.
It's pasture land
Yeah.
that grows grass all year round.
Oh, yeah. All year round. Good weather for it. That makes sense. Totally
Huge
makes sense.
agricultural presence in Florida.
Well, huge agriculture in terms of oranges. You know, going down
Yeah.
that beeline to Disney, I see the orange groves and stuff for miles and all that sort of stuff.
most of that's gone now, unfortunately.
Is it really? Growth, housing?
Yeah, and they just, the orange market sort of went to Mexico and in Central America, and they just don't do a lot of oranges. And I guess the property value is it's more valuable not oranges at this point.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, but that makes sense.
NAFTA, I think, is what probably killed the citrus industry to some degree in Florida.
Yeah.
Not that that's good or bad. I'm not smart enough to know, but
Right.
I know that.
But with the trade agreement or whatever, it changed things.
Yeah.
So you're a
Yeah,
corrections guy, and
Went
then
into corrections and then got to go over to Collier County to the sheriff's office. Worked in the jail there for a couple of years. Then went out to road patrol. Got to do some really cool things on road patrol. Worked with some great people.
Yeah.
Had great seniors, people that would mentor me. Phenomenal folks.
That's awesome.
Got some really good training. It was an incredible place to actually do work.
Yeah.
Because it's so diverse. You think Naples, Florida.
Right.
Like, upper echelon folks.
Sure.
Hoity-toity.
Right.
Not in Collier County.
Really?
Like Collier County's got some very, very expensive places to live, but they've
Yeah.
got some dirt poor,
Interesting.
like very low socioeconomic type.
So you see
areas.
the whole spectrum.
So you see everything, and
Yeah.
you don't know when you go to a call which one you're really going to be going
That's
to.
fascinating.
And so your interpersonal skills have to be on point.
Right on.
Like you have to know how to talk to everybody.
See,
Talk about being prepared for, okay, I don't know what's coming. So
Yeah.
preparation looks like this. You can't practice that.
right.
No, you can't
You have to
practice
just
it.
prepare.
You just have to prepare.
because
And
you speak differently to different people.
You do.
You know,
You do.
and you have to, or they, I always say communication is important because some people think that I'm going to be able to speak so good and know English and blah, blah, blah. Well, but if you want to communicate, you have to communicate so they understand you.
That's right.
I mean, you're not communicating; you're just talking.
That's
you're
right.
just speaking. If they're not understanding you.
Yeah.
And that's a different language across the spectrum.
Yeah, it really is.
That's fascinating.
Got to work with the Domestic Terrorism Task Force after 9/11, so I was there on 9/11.
That's cool.
Got to work with the Criminal Street Gang Unit for a little bit, which was also fascinating.
Right on. Did you run into
know.
him or his family out there, Murphy's?
He looked familiar initially.
We're a family, not a gang.
Yeah.
It's different. It's completely different.
More mafia.
If there's three or more of you wearing the same colors, you're a gang.
We're not out on the street. We're way too lazy for that. We get our pizza delivered.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. But yeah, did that. And a lot of the people that I worked with in the gang units, little special units.
Yeah.
A lot of my best friends down there are now leading that department. They're in the upper ranks of that department.
Oh, sure. The guys
And-
that stayed on.
Yeah, and it's awesome to me to watch.
That's cool.
I follow the Facebook pages and everything. I don't keep in touch with them every day, but
Sure, of course.
but you get to see the highlights of what's going on, and you get to see people who've made chief, and you get to see people
Right
who've made
on.
lieutenant
That you
and captain.
knew as just a
Know
rookie
people that
or
are
whatever.
running for supervisor of elections, so they're going for elected offices and everything down
Right
there.
on.
So it's like, man,
Normal
I'm
progression.
proud to be associated with those people.
Yeah, that's
now,
awesome.
whether they're proud to be associated with me, that's something
No,
else. But
I'm sure they are. So here's the fascinating thing because I know the story. So is that after that? Is it when you went back into the Corps? Which all that is a natural progression because when I got
It is.
out,
Yeah.
I got my degree and applied for the FBI and went through the whole process. I applied at the Marietta Police Department. My dad is a retired Marietta police officer. So I think it's a natural thing coming from military, going into law enforcement and that sort of thing.
bunch of transferable skills.
Yeah,
Like, you're wearing a uniform every day. You're wearing a weapon every day.
Absolutely.
Those kinds of things.
100%. And so, but here's where it takes an interesting turn for me, and I've seen this happen a lot. But so, at what point did you go back into the Corps? Was it right after that?
Well, kinda. So I ended up leaving law enforcement in 2005. Right around that time, Nick Berg ended up, he was beheaded on television.
I remember that.
And
It's
I
the most
remember
disgusting thing I've
watching
ever seen
that
in my
video over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting
Was he
here,
the one
I
that KSM beheaded? They found out later it was KSM. I think it is.
believe it is, yeah.
Maybe I don't remember that detail, but I remember seeing it too, and it was the most infuriating thing, and I couldn't believe.
Yeah. I almost didn't think it was real.
Yeah,
But the more we found out about it, the more we found out it was real.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here on, trained up infantryman.
right on.
I'm like, you know what? I think that what I'd really like to do is go back in the Marine Corps and see what I can do.
Right
and
on.
so took the steps to re-enlist in Gainesville, Florida. Ended up re-enlisting. The guys got me back in really fast. The recruiters,
I bet.
they were
Nice.
they were pretty happy to see me there.
Nice.
And I was happy to be there. So it was a mutual love.
So let me ask you something. So, and I like your cleaned up version, very corporate. You're like, let me go back in and see what I can do. I think it was more of a, I want to see how many of these motherfuckers I can kill after seeing that. The raw emotion is that, because
That's
all
the
I
raw
could,
emotion.
I could think of was make that place an ice rink. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
when your raw emotion comes out, you know, it's incredible. And now, so here's when I think preparation comes on the backside. You settle down and probably some maturity. You settle down and go, okay, what can I do to affect change in this? But that emotion's raw when you see something like that. Enough to change the trajectory of your life, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Did you deploy on your first enlistment?
Not so much. The unit that I was with was in Haiti.
Okay.
So it was 2-2.
Like on the beach down there and stuff?
Yeah, just hanging out, drinking some Mai Tais and, you know, umbrella drinks. So, no, they were there doing some work.
Right on.
And, you know, didn't get to do too much with them.
Yeah. It's a hot spot again now.
It's a hot spot again now.
Yeah.
But second enlistment, got to do some deploying.
Go to the sandbox.
Yeah, I got out of there, got to do what I wanted to do. And, you know, to my surprise, it took no time for me to get to a unit, get spun up, go through workups, and head to the Middle East.
And out.
It took,
right on. And what year was that?
At all. 2006.
Oh, that was the surge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd they spin you up? How'd you go from, when'd you get out?
I got out, well, I was retired in 2012.
When'd you get out the first time?
96? 94.
90 to 94.
94. No, it was 95. Excuse me. Yeah.
That is the exact time I was in.
So
by
did
the
they
way.
run you back through Camp Geiger when you re-enlisted, or did they just put you right in a unit?
No, they put
So
me
you're
right
ready to go.
right in a unit.
Wow.
Yeah. In my first enlistment was almost entirely training. Like almost entirely training.
Yeah.
And, you know, so because the
Mostly
unit,
stateside except for Haiti.
unit was deployed.
Yeah.
And so they're like, hey, man, you want to go to this course, that course, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, heck yeah, I'll go wherever you want me to go.
Right, of
like I'll
course.
take all the training I can get.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I got to train a bunch.
That's awesome. Better than
yeah.
sitting around doing details at the company, right?
Yeah. Watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate. Got to do a lot of pretty cool things.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, fast forward 2005, re-enlisted 2006, right in the very beginning of 2006, ended up deployed to Iraq.
Okay.
You know, got to stay at Camp Fallujah there for a little bit.
Nice.
And then we moved over to Abu Ghraib prison. We operated out of the prison for quite a
Really?
bit.
Fascinating. That was a black site, I think, for a
I
while.
don't think so.
Abu Ghraib wasn't? No, Abu Ghraib was the
That was the big scandal.
the scandal where they're
Yes.
taking the
Yeah.
pictures with the guys on leashes,
Yeah.
which
yeah,
I don't see any problem with. What's the problem?
Yeah.
That's why
No,
you're not.
my problem was they
That's
didn't-
why you're not an elected official.
Well, the problem was they didn't have a rolled up newspaper and they were whipping his ass, making him sit.
You know, that's part of it. They ended up getting caught. And
Yeah.
you know, that whether you like it or not, I mean, I prefer my bad guys to be out in the open free range.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, truthfully, like, let's even the battlefield out
Right
a little
on.
bit. I'll even give you the tactical advantage of hometown.
Right on.
Like, you get to know the home field.
Right on.
I'm happy to go play on your turf.
You bet.
Well, they
I'm
get
cool.
to go from combatants to victims as soon as you've got them locked up somewhere.
That's it.
True.
And that's a problem.
Yeah,
True.
So yeah,
some people.
That aside, Abu Ghraib was cool. It was a cool location. It was an eerie place, like you know, you could
Interesting.
see where Saddam kept people, just put them down in a hole.
Oh, it's terrible.
I mean, it was nasty.
Evil.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the place had a reputation too, because when you go out in town, you go on patrol. It's like, hey, tell us who you are. And if you don't, we're
You're
going
going-
to Abu Ghraib.
Wow.
And they're like, oh crap.
Yeah, let me go ahead and
Like,
cooperate.
let me go ahead and give you what
So
you
were they
guys need.
were they running off the reputation of when Saddam run it, or both? When
You
when
know,
the
probably a
Americans
little bit of
run it?
both, if I had
Yeah.
to guess.
Yeah.
Like, they knew it was an American-occupied prison.
Yeah,
So,
but
you know,
still
that
not
was
a,
no joke.
Not a
but
good place
it's
to go.
Still not a cool place to be.
Right on.
So, because the people that were there, it ran like a regular prison.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you don't want to be locked up with people. If you don't have to be there,
Right. Oh yeah, you don't want to be there.
So that was good leverage.
It was great leverage.
Great leverage. What was fascinating to me. So, what's interesting about that is how it went from being run under Saddam's regime to an American prison. And what are the, and I know it falls under combatants and Geneva Convention stuff and all that sort of stuff. And that's why they had such the problem with it all, but, and there's always those kinds of problems and crossovers, right, with the rest of the world because they don't go by the same rules. And I get it, we're supposed to be the good guys and all that. But, I don't know if I always would agree with that, but I think it's probably the right course of action. But it's fascinating that they would still fear it so much because it seems like a lot of that's changing, that they know when Americans or Westerners do something, it is not the same iron fist they're used to.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think part of the fear also was, you had some pretty darn good American interrogators there that, look, if you get picked up and taken to Abu Ghraib, when you get out, everybody's going to think you cooperated or else you wouldn't be getting out.
That's the old mafia talking about, we're going to, they may, you may not say nothing, but they're going to think you did. We're going to make sure they
you could have
think
been
you
quiet
did.
as a mouse, but it doesn't matter because you're free now.
That's
How did
also
you get
very
to be
good
that way?
leverage.
Very good leverage.
How did you get to be that way?
Because the people they're going back to don't operate under the same guise that we do in protocol.
No, those guys will kill your family. They will, take over your homes.
Yeah.
They were doing despicable things. I mean, sure. People have seen American Sniper. That was right down the street in Ramadi.
Oh yeah.
Same time frame. Jocko wrote a book.
Right on. Right.
And that whole thing is literally just 40 miles away from where we were at.
Wow,
so it's not
amazing.
like things were drastically different.
Yeah, for sure. So you did that. You were deployed there. That was 2006.
Yep.
And so a year deployment?
It ended up being closer to 7 months for me. I ended up getting blown up 6 times. So I hit roadside bombs
In that same deployment?
6 different times. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up.
Jesus, I would have made you ride alone everywhere.
Yeah, well, believe me, the corpsman wasn't thrilled about jumping in the Humvee with me. He did not like it at all. Doc Helt, man, he is. I just saw a picture of him on Facebook right before I walked in
That's
here.
great.
I love that guy so much, and gosh, he, I think he hated a lot of times going out. He loved what he did.
You're like the dude that gets struck by lightning more than once,
Yeah,
It's
so the whole convoy, right? So we were a mobile assault platoon, right?
Yeah.
Which means it's all heavy weapons mounted on Humvees.
Right.
And we were rolling out, except I wasn't in an up-armored Humvee. I was in a green, everybody else was tan,
Oh, boy.
and I'm in a green high-back.
Holy
It was like the
smokes.
specialty vehicle, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
we were doing everything from extracting snipers after they shoot somebody or take a shot at somebody, their
Okay.
compromised position,
Sure.
and we'd go get them.
Like a QRF.
Like a
sort of.
QRF type thing.
Yeah.
It was the bump vehicle. So if one of the other gun trucks went down, we were towing it, putting the crew in the back,
Right.
and driving back to base.
Yeah.
It was the medevac vehicle. So anybody
Okay.
got hurt, they were going in the back. We were
Yeah.
taking them back to the
So
base.
it's the one that looks
So
like a truck lid to
it-
square it off. Not a
yeah.
turtleback, but more of a
not a
square it
turtleback.
off.
It's super square.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
And so the windows on the back, there's like 2 windows on the very back of it.
Yeah.
And they're like this thick.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
ballistic glass.
Oh, yeah.
But man, the side of that thing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and so, you get hit with an IED. It's
Rough.
rough, but I feel like we got very lucky because obviously I didn't run directly over one.
Right.
And sometimes they were buried too deep. One was up underneath the bridge.
Yeah.
Like in the crevice, like right where the earth comes up to the bridge. Planted it up there, thinking it was going to shape charge down onto the top of our vehicle.
Okay. And y'all just got the percussion from it?
Yeah,
or
we just
whatever?
got the concussive effects,
Yeah.
and so it wasn't awful. But 3 times I lost consciousness.
Yeah.
3 times I didn't.
TBI stuff. Yeah.
And it sucked. I mean, the
How's your
whole
hearing?
inside of the Humvee was hot. It was like
Oh, yeah.
Super hot.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was everywhere. Your rifle that was locked into a thing, it was everywhere. 119 radio, gone. Like it's just somewhere in the truck. And the whole cab of the truck isn't this big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, where the hell does everything go?
It's amazing.
It finds a way into all the nooks and crannies. So,
Right.
Doc used to monitor the radio, and he'd have the thing. It looks like an old school telephone,
Yep,
right?
clips onto
For those
your
who don't know,
chin strap.
it looks like an old school telephone.
Yeah.
And it's got a clip on it that you can click onto your chin strap.
Right on.
And he stuffed it up into his ear. Well, that thing went all over the place. It's just everything is everywhere. Your earplugs get blown out. It's like you're wearing them, but it's like, what the hell for?
Right.
Like the overpressure is so powerful.
Oh, I bet that's an amazing experience.
Man, it's amazing.
Terrible,
it's terrifying.
but terrible. And I
Yeah.
bet, but it's fascinating when you think about it academically. I'd imagine, like you're
It is.
talking about, like
It is.
Where did that stuff go?
yeah,
Well,
and the fact
after
that
you figure out you're alive,
right,
then you can academically think about it.
the fact that it wasn't up armored and the fact that it wasn't sealed up so tight, I feel like that played an actual
helped you.
beneficial role because the pressure didn't injure us that badly.
You're
like
right.
it did, but it wasn't as bad as it could
It's
have been.
TBI,
Like,
but it didn't kill you or tear body parts
yeah,
off.
I mean, it didn't tear body parts off. We had some of the gun trucks, that got hit with IEDs.
Yeah.
Guys missing parts of their legs now.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're in bad shape.
Well,
But-
it's funny when you talk about the overpressure. So something we trained about on that was if a mortar round is coming in or a grenade or an RPG or whatever, they would say open your mouth as wide as you can and just just try and, which is a good effective thing they learn from stuff, and because you're probably going to scream or make some guttural noise anyway, like if you have the benefit of knowing something's coming or it's there. But they said the important thing is for overpressure. If you do that, it helps you with it, because if you're all tight, like you said, it will jack you up worse,
Right.
And same thing with the Hummer. I would imagine it's the same principle, man. If you're in there, I don't know what that would be like, being in a gun barrel or something, as opposed to being outside of a gun
I've
barrel.
never had anything remotely like that.
Dude,
I took a little artillery in the first Gulf.
Yeah.
And talk about overpressure. And I was hundreds of yards.
Yeah.
250 yards away.
Right on.
Unbelievable the pressure that's involved. People don't realize that. They've never been through anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, I'll
They
tell
think
you-
it's noise.
Yeah.
It's not the noise.
Right.
Yeah, so you leave the fob then after that. You go condition 1 right there inside the wire.
Right.
And for all the future missions, and it just seems like after first couple, there's always there's that metal bump at every gate
Yeah.
when you roll over it.
Right.
Clank, clank. And it's like,
Ugh.
your asshole puckers, man. It's like, it's like, man,
There's no
every
way to get
bump
around
you
that.
hit, you can't help it.
Yeah.
Like every bump you hit, it's like, oh my God.
Classical
Is that gonna-
conditioning
Yeah.
to the nth degree
And you can't drive enough miles
to get rid
to
of that.
get rid of that sensation. Not in Iraq.
Do you still feel it even today sometimes ever? Do you ever hit a big pothole that is like, sometimes you hit one that's
No.
jarring, you're like,
No, the only thing that has lasted, that's kind of stood the test of time as far as a traumatic recurring thought,
yeah,
is dead animals on the side of the street.
interesting.
Yeah, like
Fascinating.
you see animals, dogs or whatever that are on the side of the street.
Yeah.
And they're all puffy and everything. And,
Yeah.
and rigor has set in. Their
Right.
legs are all stiff.
Right.
Well, these guys were planting IEDs and dead carcasses and
No
leaving them on the side of the
kidding.
street. Trash on the side of the street.
So if you see that, you're like, change lanes.
Dude, when I first got back, I changed lanes when I was going under overpasses.
Really?
Yeah, like that was a tactic that we used. Like, you go in under the overpass in one lane,
Right.
switch lanes underneath,
Sure.
because people were dropping grenades off of overpasses.
Makes sense.
And so it's like, okay, and why I did it, like at some point,
Yeah.
you kind of forget about it. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
stop being irrational about things. And
Well, time sort of, I think, helps with everything.
yeah, it,
know.
it does. And you know
I
what?
don't think it erases anything, but
Yeah.
it sure
I,
does
I
help
would
with it.
love for you to talk about your recovery process.
The
Physical
recovery-
side and the psychological side.
Yeah.
Really more the psychological side, because
Yeah.
I have a sneaking suspicion you're going to tell me, well, we just talked about it. That was it.
No, I think he actually got good care.
I got pretty good care. I think, was it called EMDR? Is that what it was called? Where they tap on your face and they tap on your back and they tap all over you.
What is that?
Exposure therapy.
A nervous system.
So you went through like prolonged exposure. They did a lot of that for you, making you sort of relive some of it.
I didn't go through that, mostly because I said I wouldn't go through that.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't trust them. It's not that they didn't offer it.
Fascinating.
I didn't want to be exposed over and over and over and over and over and over. It's like, okay, what are you guys trying to reinforce? Like, you're not going to show me a decapitated person and show it to me over and over again and have me think something different. Probably.
What's the purpose of that exposure therapy? What is it called exactly?
Well, I think the purpose for this is for people, and you probably had already moved on from that because it sounds like you're well adjusted, and I am, hopefully don't get this wrong, prolonged exposures for people that are having an adverse effect or reaction from post-traumatic stress.
Okay.
And prolonged exposure desensitizes them to certain triggers.
Oh, I see.
When we were kids, we called that sort of facing your problems,
yeah,
right? Which is it's that on steroids, but
okay.
You know, this is something that I see that typically makes me feel a very irrational way, and the way that we make it feel rational and respond appropriately is by being exposed to that and starting to understand that, you know what, every time I see a pink kitty with purple polka dots, it doesn't mean I'm going to die.
Right.
Yeah.
So my brother
had
did
a handle
that.
on it.
So my brother did that. He beat my ass so much when I was little that eventually I knew it wasn't going to kill me. I mean, is it similar?
That's good training.
He clearly came 2 or 3 shy of his goal.
Right.
So 2006, did you do one deployment and you got blown up
deployment and just
6 times?
Just got crushed.
Jesus
on that
Christ! Hey, Josh, let's do this remotely. Can you go out in your car and we phone you in on FaceTime?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Can I sit over there?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. You can sit wherever you'd like.
Did other people get exposed to a lot of IEDs as well, or were you?
I think the whole platoon took something like 13 over the course of the deployment.
Wow.
And my vehicle accounted for 6 of them.
My God.
Yeah.
You're a lucky bastard.
Dude, I mean,
did you play the lottery when you got back?
I didn't play at all when I got back.
Well, I mean, you were in the goose truck, like duck, 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 duck,
True.
goose,
Yeah.
True.
duck, duck, duck.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
From the Iraqi
You think that had something to
lens,
do with it? Do you think maybe?
I mean, from the Iraqi lens, if you're Al Qaeda and you're looking at one of these things is not like the other, right? And what are they doing with that vehicle?
That one's got to be more important.
That one's got to have. There's people in the back of it, so maybe there's going to be more people in that one.
Did you not have a sign going, "I'm not more important"?
Yeah.
No, I wish I had thought of that. How silly not to have thought of that. But no, I mean, we were trying to find 110 cans of spray paint.
Right.
It's like, could we please paint this damn thing?
Seriously. Now, were you assigned to that vehicle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you couldn't.
Yeah, it was me and a corpsman. It's a 2-seater, except for who you put in the back.
Right.
And yeah, so it was just different enough. I mean, we were tasked with. So every Marine unit, I think, gets tasked with something stupid. Yeah. Right. And our stupid thing was we had the shit sucker truck. So all these porta-johns that you see.
Oh yeah.
We'd have to go to all the different outposts, and you take an indige, or somebody that works for Kellogg Browning Root.
Sure.
And
he actually
toss him in the back. He's the one who actually goes.
He's the honeysucker.
He's the honeysucker. And you take him around, and he gets out and he does his thing, but you have to drag this thing around, and it goes on a trailer.
Wow.
And it stinks to high hell.
Right.
And
did they blow that up?
They blew that up.
Did it blow shit
It was
everywhere?
atomized shit everywhere. We thought the Iraqi was dead. Like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be cooked back there.
That's fascinating.
And
that's the greatest thing I've heard.
Like, dude, it was something else. So, I mean, honestly, if I was somebody, if it was like Red Dawn style here, right, and we were.
I'm blowing the shit truck up every time.
Blowing that guy up, yeah.
There's a general in that front vehicle, or the last vehicle, probably. There's a general in there. No, man. What'd you blow up the shit truck for? Because it was the shit truck. Yeah, fair enough.
And
you
these
know?
guys didn't know what a shit truck was.
Right.
They're still shitting in the street.
Yeah. Oh, true.
So they didn't know what a shit. I mean, this is like
They
hygiene.
might have been
This
trying
is
to be
next level
tactical.
hygiene.
So they
them.
they weren't Iraqi rednecks going, let's blow the shit truck up. They were just dumb. They thought that was some kind of
they were
tactical.
tactically sound. What they didn't know was that was the stupidest vehicle
God
in the
Almighty,
world. to
that's
blow up.
even better.
Yeah.
That's even
Yeah.
better.
Why not blow up the 50 caliber, the tow?
Oh my God,
Like
yes.
blow up one of those.
Right.
But
Right.
luckily they didn't get too many of those.
Oh my
So-
God, that is the
I think
best thing I've heard
everybody
all
got some
day.
though on that deployment.
Yeah.
And unfortunately we did.
Did the dude quit? Did the honeysucker quit?
To his credit, he did not.
No way.
I don't know what the repercussions are of quitting.
No way.
But
so
he
did
didn't
he
quit.
come
I
home
think
with
he must
shit
have been
all
getting
over
paid.
and he was like, honey, as a bad dad, I don't want to talk
Yeah,
about it.
this was a hard day at the office. Yeah. This was a tough day. Yeah, I know I said all I do is get dragged around. I get to take nice scenic tours in the back of a Humvee. But
No, the job's easy, honey.
it was terrible. Yeah, this was a bad day at the office. Yeah, for sure.
My God, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was killer.
That's part of the military that I love right there is finding all the humor. It's so hilarious to me when shit like that. It's so serious and detrimental, but it is also the most funny thing I could think of.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's
blew
too
the
many
shit truck
funny
up.
things happen.
Yeah. My
Like,
God,
and that
man.
that accounted for a lot of humor.
Right on.
You know?
Oh, I bet. Y'all draw straws or do rock, paper, scissors for who's going to do the old fucking shit truck rounds. And it's like, I
Yeah.
ain't carrying that thing again.
Only people in the military, and I would even contend people that have been deployed at some point would understand the humor in that because
Yeah.
you're in this environment that there should be nothing humorous.
Oh, yeah.
But there's humor in everything.
In everything.
You fix yourself in whatever environment you're in, and
True.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
True.
you know?
Yeah.
True. And I love that. Isn't that funny? Isn't that fascinating?
Mm-hmm.
I know. That's awesome. So,
The recovery was cool. The recovery was fine.
so you deploy back with your unit, or did you deploy earlier from the injuries?
What do you mean? I got medevac from Iraq.
Okay.
Went to Germany for a week or 2 weeks or something like that.
Ramstein.
Ramstein, yeah.
Ramstein, yeah.
Yeah. So Launchtrel Hospital.
Yeah, famous. That's where everybody goes, right?
That's where everybody goes, I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, I think so.
And then from there back to the United States by way of someplace on the East Coast. I don't
How long
remember
were
if
you
it's
in Germany?
Dover or if it was someplace else. It was a week or two. I don't really remember. But it was a long enough time to kind of. I remember getting there and I remember thinking, Jesus, it's cold here. And it wasn't. Like, it was a normal temperature, but it was 135 when I left Iraq.
You're acclimated.
So
to the,
you're acclimated to the heat.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that you can ever truly get acclimated to. It's so damn hot.
Yeah.
But when you get there, and you're not wearing body armor,
Yeah, true.
you're not carrying a bunch of weight around.
True.
All of a sudden, it feels like it's freezing cold. And I remember riding around in vehicles. You're used to your armored gun trucks going
Yeah.
around and everybody getting the hell out of your way.
Right.
And in Germany, it's the Autobahn. And
You're just
there's a
back
bunch
to-
of people. It's just like back to normal all of a sudden.
So
And
was
so
there?
you're driving down the road going 100 miles an hour,
Which is nuts.
and you're like, holy shit. And
Yeah.
none of these people are getting out of your way. There's people swerving all over the
Oh,
place.
yeah.
And, you get back, and then all of a sudden you're in sunny California, and you're driving down I-5,
Yeah.
the 5,
Yeah.
for all the California folk.
Right.
And man, it is a different level of anxiety.
Wow.
I think every veteran, one way or another, has experienced some of that before, in lesser and greater degrees. But you're actually on the interstate from here down,
Yeah.
and from here up, you're not there yet.
No, and
right.
I
Interesting.
imagine if I deployed a lot and I got to do that rotation over and over again, that it might get easier. I don't know. I'd have to talk to somebody who's deployed a ton of times, but I don't know that for me on that first deployment coming back,
Yeah.
it seemed outrageous. Like it was wild.
You're juxtaposed.
Yeah, and that's the environment that I lived in prior to deployment, so it wasn't like I was entirely unfamiliar with it.
I think
But-
it's such an intense situation, for your mind you have to acclimate and then go to a level your brain has never gone to, a survivability mode on a chronic level. I think I think that's the traumatic part, people have of deployments is like your brain has probably never gone, or if it has, it was quick. We've all been in accidents where you're out of control and you're just like, oh my God, and it was a quick second and you're back and you're safe. There, it's a chronic level of that survivability.
Yeah, I don't think you realize when you're in it. And it was the same with law enforcement. Like when you're in law enforcement, you don't realize the level of daily stress that you're under.
Yeah.
Until you totally get out of it. Like it's nothing that a vacation's going to cure. It's like months down the road, you're like, that probably wasn't that healthy.
Oh, for sure.
And then all of a sudden you go to a war zone. And it's the same thing, super intense. And, if I brought any PTSD back, it was that. It was the big crowds. And to this day, I don't like big crowds.
Yeah.
I just try to avoid them at all costs. That's just my thing.
Yeah.
And, I used to go to concerts. I used to go to sporting venues. I used to do all that stuff. And I still will.
Yeah.
If I've got the proper amount of time to prepare for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, but if I don't, if I'm just thrust, like, hey, let's swing by the mall.
Right.
And it's Black Friday. It's like, nope.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to Target. I don't want to go to like anything.
I'm the same
You
way.
lived for 7 months where those crowds were actual threats. And by that, I mean they were real threats, not perceived threats. Well, and how do you unlearn that?
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do.
And think about even for him, like that was the time I was over there at the Gulf War and on the front lines. And I had artillery fired over us and, we were on the highway of death and we did all that stuff, but getting blown up not only is it a perceived threat, which is actual, right? But your perception, but it actually happened.
That's what I mean. It's a real threat. It's a real threat when you're deployed and you come back and you see things that mimic what actually looked like for 7 months a real threat. And it's really hard to unwind from that,
but then
disassociate from it.
Right, but then his classical conditioning was it happened. Right. It didn't kill him, but it happened 6 times. Mm-hmm. That's tremendous that you have any sense at all about you.
I mean, you're right. You're right.
Seriously.
It is kind of.
We haven't been blown up at all, and we have no sense.
It's a fact.
Well, I joke around and say that those IEDs actually made me a better student in college. Like somehow it rewired my brain to actually be good at stuff.
Oh, you know what? Let's talk about that for a minute. So we all know how traumatic these things are and how the negative effects and all that. What are positive? Is there that? Because what's interesting? When I got out of the Army and went to college, straight A's.
Yep.
I literally got straight A's in college. You did too?
Yeah. I never got a B. Not even on a homework assignment, not on a quiz, not on a test.
It's interesting. I've never had a B either, but not the way you guys did it.
So fascinating enough, when I went to high school, I don't know that I passed a class in high school. I quit at 16. The next Saturday, went and took a GED test and signed up and went to college. I hated college. I was a solid C student.
Right.
I hated just being in a class. I wasn't dumb. I just hated being in a class. I would get things the first time, and then they'd have to sit there for, somebody and have to tell them 5 times in a row. And I was so frustrated. I didn't know why. I wasn't really a jerk, but I just like, man, if he asks one more question, I am going to go over there and drill this guy. I was young and stupid, I was like this, and I got in a lot of fights because I'm like, would you shut up? I thought he was messing around or something.
Right.
I didn't realize that. And I'm like, I'm out. And so, and got my GED. I signed up, went to college because I thought it'd be better. And it was better than high school, but I was like a C student. I was like, I still don't like being in this classroom. And it's sort of just a little elevated. And so I joined the Army, loved it, loved the pressure, did well, and then went through the Gulf, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, the whole 9, and then went to college, straight A's. I mean, I think I might have got 1 or 2 B's in my whole degree. And I'm like, it's fascinating to know how I hated school so much, and then I loved it after that kind of tumultuous period, you know what I mean? And you actually had literal T-biz. I had concussions from jumping and things like that. So that's what I want to talk about. How do you think, or have you heard of anything that like would affect you in a positive way on those things? I mean, because clearly the effect for me and you was, I don't know how you were in school, but was a very positive effect. And obviously we always think that's just a maturing process or whatever. And okay, I don't discount that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I had grown up. I wasn't, you know, I would get on to kids that were playing slap and tickle. Like, take it back to the, I probably said barracks at the time, but, you know, take it back to your dorm. I'm trying to learn here, you know.
Well, I think maybe that's nothing more than maturity. You deploy, you get a little bit different.
Maybe, but
you get different exposure.
Why couldn't you change your biology a little bit from some of these things?
You very well may. I have no idea.
We always
no way qualified to answer that. But
I know. I wonder, because we always account for the negative aspects of it. But when you get your eggs scrambled, sometimes why can't there be some positive in that?
could be. I'm again no way qualified to answer this, but
You don't need to be. That's the good thing about now.
We are complex creatures, and I would just say that you probably take whatever exposure you had and the experience you had when you were deployed, high levels of combat, low levels of combat, I don't even know that it matters, and you start applying them to a situation that before you took for granted, and now you're like, okay, I know why I'm here, and I know what I'm doing, and I know where I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't want to lump this into one word, but that is actually maturity. It's emotional maturity. Hey, I have a mission, and I understand what it is. It's about me now. I've done the part that wasn't me.
Yeah.
So
I don't deny that.
Yeah, I think for me, it did. I mean, look, I re-enlisted when I was 32, and I was an E3. At 32 years old, they were calling me Archibald Henderson, which is the grand old man of the Marine Corps. You know,
That's
and it
awesome.
was funny because I was 32.
Right.
Like, I was by no means old.
Right.
But I was old
Compared to
a
them.
19-year-old. I was old.
For sure.
And you know, here again, you get to serve with some of the best people in the world. And man, love my roommate, Andy Wright. What a character.
Yeah.
And he and I were always jabbing at each other.
Really?
And, yeah, I mean, had some of the most fun times in the world with him. But, you know, I don't know, you end up going through and you have all these traumatic things happen. You see all the traumatic things. You know, like ridiculous things that people can't comprehend. And I don't know that people have written about it in books. Like at one point we were doing, an incident happened. I don't really know how much I can really talk about it, so I'm not going to. But suffices to say that there were Iraqi body parts all over the place. And I looked down and I was standing on half of a guy's face, like his entire skull. Like, so his eye was still there.
Yeah.
His nose was still there. It was like Phantom of the Opera mask, except his face was laying on the ground and I was standing on it. And I didn't know it.
Right.
And I looked down and I remember saying, "Oh, sorry." I was
Interesting.
like, "Why would I say sorry?"
Interesting.
Like, that's a piece of body.
That's fascinating to me.
And so here I am tossing IV bags to the corpsman.
Yeah.
And, you know, we run out of IV bags. I jump down to assist on the ground.
Yeah.
To try to save the survivors. And, you know, it was just a weird thing. I've not thought about that.
That's fascinating.
Ever. Like, I don't ever think about that.
Yeah.
Like, be it a fake mask, be it fake anything.
Right.
But that happened. I know it happened.
Yeah.
I associate it with war.
Yeah.
The explosions, totally associated with war.
Yeah.
Spontaneously being attacked, I associate it with war.
Right.
It's the same way that I, you know, if I smell rotten meat, that's not good. But for the most part, that's one of the only things that really, like, takes me back.
Interesting.
You know, I would say
that's the only thing that takes me back to the Gulf.
The smell.
Yeah.
You said that before. The lightning and the thunder will wake me up sometimes, and I'm literally back there. I am literally back there for just a split second.
Yep.
It's the most fascinating and a little bit terrifying.
And that's so interesting because I grew up in Central Florida. Lightning and thunder is a calming thing for me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
that was
common.
home. When I got home, that was home.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's daily down there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know what it is. I don't know why I'm able to handle it the way that I can.
Yeah.
Because I know there's people that it tears them up.
Yeah.
And we got people killing themselves because they can't escape it.
Right.
Yep.
And that is, it's really sad to me to
Yeah.
see that. And
Yeah, me
I
too.
don't know why I'm the way I am,
I feel the same way.
but I don't think about any of it. Like everything that's happened to me post-combat, almost all of it's been positive. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I grew as a man
Yeah.
because I went to combat.
Me too.
And I came back better equipped to handle life because I'd gotten so close to death that it's like, man, what are the chances it's ever going to be that bad again?
But
I
you
used to be terrified of public speaking.
Now it doesn't
Come back
matter.
from combat, it's like, I don't
Well,
really care.
here's
I'll
an
talk
interesting-
to
That's what I
billion
say,
people, I don't care.
Well, that's what's fascinating is I just wonder because there has to be a biological change as well, but and like for the better.
Hear this hypothesis. I don't know that biological would fit into what I'm going to say, but it's definitely psychological.
Yeah.
And again, the distance between psychology and biology is zero. It's a merge. It's not, you can't separate the two.
Yep.
But I would hypothesize that if you have to learn how to concentrate.
Hold on, Mike, 1 second. Is him on the table? Is that messing anything up, or
What's that?
is him on the table? Is that mess anything up?
You mean like leaving on the table?
Yeah.
No, he's fine.
Okay.
Now you're going to have to make. Now I'm going to have to remember where I was going with
Your
this, right?
hypothesis
Yeah.
was like you wasn't sure
So,
if it was biological.
Here's a good hypothesis.
Yeah.
We don't know if this is true or not. But if you have to learn how to operate in an environment that is full of chaos, and by operate I mean concentrate and execute.
Yep.
Coming back and going to college where you actually still have to operate, you have to concentrate and you have to execute, and none of the chaos is there, you probably are going to be better at it.
Oh yeah, no, I think
There's
that's,
there's
I think
some
that's
very
right. That
good
makes
conditional
sense.
training.
Oh, yeah.
With learning how to operate, concentrate, and execute in an environment that is less than perfect.
Yeah.
In a school environment is just about as close. School and church are about as close to perfect as you're going to get to learn. And if you can learn anywhere else, learning
think about
somewhere,
that.
in an easy environment probably becomes easy.
No, I think that's a great hypothesis.
Yeah.
No
I mean,
idea if
very
it's
good.
true or not.
Well, no, so I disagree with that. I think it's 100% true, but we don't know what the mechanism is, right? Is it biological? Is it just psychological? What is it? But it's 100% true. I mean,
Well, they're
went
so interconnected. It's hard.
I went from a terrible, terrible high school student, very likable high school, no problems. I didn't have problems. My teachers loved me. I had I'm still friends with a lot of these people
Yeah.
to this day.
Yeah.
But hated that environment. I love the social side of it. I love the social side of high school, but I hated that learning environment. And then you fast forward 10 years. How am I thriving?
Well, it's just easy. I would offer you that it's easy to do it now because you've had to operate in an environment. It's
sure.
much more difficult to operate and execute in.
Yeah.
Regardless of where it is.
Yeah.
It's anything under pressure.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
My guess is that if you took a trauma surgeon
Yeah.
and put him back in school, they're going to perform flawlessly because that's considerably easier than doing trauma surgery.
For
which
sure.
is all the pressures. Okay, I'm executing what I've learned.
Yeah.
But now I'm doing it under intense pressure.
Makes sense.
Life and death pressure.
Makes sense.
Well, I'll tell you this too. It really kind of it brings all the unnecessary funny games of boot camp.
Yeah.
And makes them all perfectly relevant.
Yes.
It's like, okay, you're just trying to make me disciplined.
Right.
Yep.
And man, I'll tell you what, I wish Marine Corps boot camp could get harder.
Yeah.
Because
Me too.
I don't think that
Yeah.
I don't think you could prepare enough to go to war.
You know what? It's funny. You realize it's a I guess a dichotomy would be the right way to say it. It's funny because you look at those things we're going through and you think it's the stupidest things you could ever do, and then in practical application down the line you realize all those things were pretty well designed. Even the stupid things were so well designed.
Yeah.
In
Well,
terms
absolutely.
of how you execute later on.
Sure. I mean, it's important. I mean, it sounds so dumb when you go through basic and you're throwing trash cans around and screaming and yelling, but the reality is, and we've talked briefly about this,
Yeah.
how do you have a functional OODA cycle when you have all these interruptions that would normally put you in reset. So you would go observation orientation, back to observation orientation.
That's right.
Back to observation. And if you can learn to put this over here and move to decision and action, you've got something. And they didn't even know that 60 years ago, but the truth is they were probably better at it then, pre-Vietnam and Vietnam, than they are now.
Oh, yeah.
Because they understood how relevant it was to get someone to execute under the worst possible conditions they can give them, just shy of killing them. Well, that's what they're going to go to next.
They didn't know, and like to that point, like you were just saying, you don't know if that's right. It is right. You're saying you don't know how to back that up, like with scientific empirical data. But it is right, and I think you're right. I think back in the day, they knew this is right. I know this is right, what you're going to see. And this is, they didn't know the terminology and things that we know now from all that kind of stuff.
Well, we name everything now.
Yeah, we label everything.
So, yeah, and look, it is absolutely awful waking up to the sound of drill instructors, 3 or 4 of them, coming in and yelling and screaming at you, throwing trash cans down the side of the squad
comforting
bay.
at all about that.
It's pretty bad, but let's think about it. So you're going to wake up to some noise.
Yeah.
You're going to wake up to bright lights.
Right.
And they're asking you to go get online.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
How hard is that?
Yeah. Well,
And fast forward to when you're deployed.
Yeah.
You might be waking up to an explosion.
Right.
Because you sleep when you can.
That's right.
You're going to wake up to an explosion. You're going to wake up to gunfire. You're going to wake up to, maybe not incoming gunfire even, maybe outgoing gunfire.
Right.
But nevertheless, you're waking up to something.
Which is
it's
not a normalcy.
It's not normal, but you know what? Waking up to garbage cans, it's awful.
Right.
But
it sort of trains you up.
It's like,
it's
okay.
less than civil.
Yeah, it's less
which
than
is
civil.
What
it teaches you to get used to.
100%.
You get used to waking up in a kind of a negative way. It's like, okay, when I wake up, I'm awake.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm getting up, and I don't have to stretch and yawn, scratch my crotch, and then go and do stuff. Like, you don't have to do that.
It's so
Like,
fascinating.
hey, man, I'm getting up
Desensitize
and I'm
that so that
going
you can
to work.
execute.
Yeah.
Like you're actually executing without knowing it because you've been desensitized to things like loud noises.
Yeah.
Or people yelling at you.
Right.
You've been blown
Or
up
just
6
the
times.
fact that you know you can.
Yeah.
It's like, nowadays, maybe I do my wife wakes me up and gives me a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's one of the most wonderful things in the world. It's
Right.
one of the things that I love the most.
Yep.
Yep.
I
Me too.
hate coffee. I don't drink coffee, but she brings me coffee. And if she does that, I'm drinking it.
That's wonderful.
And so I wake up nice and slow. The lights go on dim.
Yeah.
Like, it's not bad.
Right.
But I know that if I have to, if the lights come on in the middle of the night, or
Yeah.
if the lights go out
Right.
entirely in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
and I have to be up and
Yeah.
I have to operate in my house,
Yeah.
I know I'm going to be fine.
100%.
I'll wake up and I'll be wide awake.
Well, I think
So-
that's a confidence that comes from it,
Yeah.
and you get used to that, that pressure, and you got confidence even with that pressure, and it's like, yeah, you perform better, I think. So let's fast forward. So you get out, you do your tour, and you get out.
Yeah, so I come back from Iraq. I go through, speech therapy, cognitive therapy, all of this therapy.
Fascinating.
Like, and spent what seemed like forever doing it.
Yeah.
Probably took, I don't know if it took a year or what, but it took a while.
Where was this?
This is at Scripps in Encinitas out in California. Went to Bethesda over and over and over again. And the people that you see at Bethesda going through the same kind of therapy are SEALs that have been blown up, other infantrymen that have been in combat that have been hurt badly, Army guys, SF,
Right.
All kinds of people
Sure.
that you just run into, and they happen to be in California.
Yeah.
And so they happen to be going to all the same therapies. And, you meet some really cool people, trained to the hilt.
Right on.
And, there's kind of that strength in numbers mentality that everybody's just trying to get through it.
Yep.
And it was awesome.
What percentage of those of you guys, when you were there, do you think were trying to move through that to get back in active service, and how many of them were going through that to transition out of service?
I couldn't say, because I think that everybody there was a high achieving person. Mm-hmm. Nobody that I ran into was anything typical.
Yeah.
It seemed like I was in a pretty unique environment where, it's, infantry guys, ground combat guys that all operated at really high levels when we went to work. And so I think everybody was going through things with the intent of going back to their unit and moving on. I don't think anybody thought, hey, man, this is the end of the road for me.
Oh, yeah.
And including me. And I don't know for sure, but I think that's one of the reasons that I transitioned out of the military so easily. Like I wasn't trying to get a med board.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to get retired.
Right.
I wasn't inquiring even about retirement. I was, hey, what's
next?
What's next? Like, what am I doing next?
Right.
And even still, I'm slurring my speech and I'm dyslexic. And I'm still trying to figure everything out. But I never thought that was the end of the road. I thought it was just going to be a part of the road.
Right.
And that I was going to keep on moving past it. And at some point during that whole process, they were like, bro, you're going to go on temporary disabled retirement list. We're going to send you back to Florida to do your rehab.
Did you do your rehab at a VA or a regular?
Were you at Shands?
I was at I went to Shands because of the Gainesville VA, and so I ended up, if I had to go to the hospital, I went to Shands. So here's where the funny thing is: all of the explosions, all of everything happened. I was walking and talking. I had back surgeries at that point. I think I had 4 back surgeries or something, or 3 back surgeries, because discs were ruptured and everything else.
Yeah.
Back was broken. So fast forward, 4th surgery, I'm going in because my legs kept going numb. My right leg in particular kept going numb. And so I go in for my 4th surgery at Shands and ended up walking into the thing. Doctors did the surgery. I wake up and I'm paralyzed from the waist down.
Oh, boy. Great.
I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And at that moment, because those are things that you don't realize. One, when you're in combat, you don't think you're going to come back hurt. You think you're either going to die or you're going to walk back just fine.
Right.
Like, you never consider the fact that you're going to come back missing a limb.
Yeah.
Or missing an eye or anything like that. You think it's either all or nothing. Like, I'm going to go there and I'm not going to limp home. I'm going to walk back home.
Right.
Like, you're not going to get hurt. You're going to get dead.
Right.
If anything.
Yeah.
And so that's the first surprise. It's like, no, you can also get hurt.
Yeah.
There's other things that are going to happen. But you don't.
And more likely that it happens that way.
Way more likely, because battlefield medicine has advanced so far.
Oh, yeah.
But you also don't think you're going to go in for a surgery where your legs are just, because your legs are going numb and you're just going to wake up not being able to walk at all. You're going to have a permanent catheter for a while.
Wow.
Like longer than you'd want to.
That's a reality check,
Yeah,
huh?
it's a super reality check. And, you know, it's going to wreck relationships.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to wreck all kinds of, I mean, it hits like a wrecking ball.
When did this happen
Crushes
post
everything.
medevac? So
This is
post combat trauma. How many months was this happened to?
Oh gosh, this was. I had 2 or 3 back surgeries in San Diego, and then I was placed on the temporary retirement list, temporary disabled retirement list. Which, by the way, if you heal up, you get to go back into the service. So it's temporary for a reason.
Oh.
And so.
So you're still rehabbing, basically.
So yeah, I'm on convalescent leave essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm in Gainesville, Florida. I go into, this was in 2009? 2009, I guess.
2 years. This is 2
So
years.
this is 2 years post-trauma that it was just supposed to be a routine. We're going to go in and we're going to remove some of this scar tissue. We're going to take out this disc. And everything should be everything. I was working with the chief of the department, who was an old guy, and I have to say, my first inclination that something was going to go sideways should have been when he was writing things out, and his hand was shaking, and I thought, yeah, well, he's teaching everything. He's not doing
Right.
And so I was like, you know, but deep down inside, you're like, geez, I hope that's not. You know, everybody hears horror stories about the VA, right?
Of course.
And I'm here to tell you that the VA has treated me better than I could ever have expected. And so I'm in no way, shape, or form bashing the VA when I say this, but that is where I ended up paralyzed. So for better or for worse, it didn't happen on the battlefield. It did happen as a result of combat, but
Of course.
it didn't happen as a direct result of combat. It happened as a result of
I can
a
circle that
surgery.
all the way back to our first 2 or 3 sentences. In no way were you prepared for that.
No, nobody can prepare for that. And that probably did more emotional damage to me
Interesting.
than anything else
Yeah.
about that entire
Well,
3-year span that I just talked about.
that's interesting, but it makes sense, right? Because like you said, you were prepared. When you deploy, you're prepared for things to go wrong. When you're
Yeah.
back, you think, okay, I'm safe now. I'm getting fixed. I'm getting better.
Yeah, nobody's trying to kill me.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so you go through care, paralyzed. That obviously got corrected
Yeah, well, it's not corrected. It's
to a point.
I healed from it, and so
Did you have to have a corrective surgery?
No.
It just sort of.
I had a subsequent
sir.
surgery, but the surgery was to. No, thanks. I'm good. The surgery was to get out a piece of disc because, in addition to my legs being paralyzed, they just hurt.
Okay.
They were hurting.
Yeah.
Where I could feel things, they were in pain.
Right.
And so
What's that
she thought,
attributed
hey
to?
man, if I can take out this piece of disc and free up that nerve, you might even get some leg function back. And so
Okay.
of course I was like, yeah, I really hate the idea of going through a surgery again, but yeah, let's do it.
Sure.
Because if I can get any function back, I'm 100% down.
Right.
And so it didn't work, but they did end up fusing my spine together, and they went in through my stomach to actually fuse my spine,
Fascinating.
which was interesting to
Yeah,
me.
for sure.
So I've got some very impressive scars.
Yeah, I guess. I guess.
But
like
but yeah,
Frankenstein.
man, it's that's it. Like
So they end up taking care of you, though. and
they have taken great care of me, and so
Right on.
anytime I've, I went through a little blip at one point where it seemed like everything was just hard,
Yeah.
and I went and got, went to the mental health part of the VA,
Yeah.
talked to psychologists, psychiatrists.
Yep.
Ended up not going on medication. Just kind of talked it out.
Yeah.
And
right on.
was fine. And ever since then, I've been good as gold. That's been years ago at this point.
It's interesting. Our journey is sort of the same deal. Psych evals and things like that, and no, don't need medication, but did counseling over the years
Yeah.
and things that help out. I mean, I think it's such a wonderful thing to collect your thoughts if you don't have to. I mean, now look, when you have to, you have to. Biology's hard to rail against. Psychology, you can fight. You can use tools and things like that. But a lot of guys need to do it. But
Yeah, I'm fortunate in the sense that I've never tried to get anything out of the VA. And maybe that's why my experience has been good.
expectations. Well, it's an
The
expectation.
expectations.
Yeah.
Well, the expectation is, hey, I'm a hurt combat vet.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come in and tell you I'm a hurt combat vet. And as frustrated as I've been at the VA sometimes because the
Sure.
process,
Of course.
the people are good.
Yeah.
They are trying to get me the help that I need.
Right on.
And if anything, there's red tape within the system, some bureaucracy crap that is not enabling them to do things the way that they'd like to.
Sure.
And whether it's you can't get an appointment fast enough, or you have to sit on hold for a while, or whatever the situation is,
Right.
I feel like they're not doing it on purpose. Like they're really trying to help.
It's a leadership
But
problem.
dude, it feels like they're doing it on purpose sometimes. But if you go up to 40,000 feet where the air is good,
Yeah.
and look down and say, hey, look, are they really trying to just fuck with me?
No.
No.
Because they're probably not.
And the people are fantastic.
Yeah.
I've talked about this with people at work.
Most of them.
If you look at your environment and the parts are greater than the sum,
Yeah.
you have a leadership problem. If you're in leadership and you're looking around and going, I'm surrounded by excellent people and we're not performing that well, which is the VA,
Yeah.
we have a leadership problem. The
Agreed.
people we have, high quality people. High quality people that can't operate it because as leaders,
Yeah.
whoever those would be, and I'm not pointing this or making this political, it is who it is, but they're inhibiting the VA from functioning efficiently.
yeah.
I would even say it's a process, which it's a process problem, but there's so many layers on the VA that a normal hospital has lots of layers, right? From HIPAA to all of your, medical overlays and everything that go along with it, legal side that impacts it, and then VA on top of that has the political and the legislative side. And I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of like you. I'm grateful. I've been going there for 30 something years. You know, when I got back from the Gulf War, they made me register, and I have to go every year. They send me nasty letters if I don't.
God, I refused all of that stuff. Refused to go to Texas.
Yeah.
All of that GWS, which I think is, well, I'm softening in my old age. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe
we caused it. If you see we blew up the bunkers, those bunkers that had the sarin gas. We have video.
Well, and I don't know that they've even related it to that. So,
they have. I was on 60 Minutes.
It went from paint to sarin gas exposure
to depleted uranium, which I think they're all of them. But we literally have video. Was on 60 Minutes with Ed Bradley when he was still alive.
I completely own me acting like an idiot.
Yeah.
It's just me.
So, but anyway, I've been involved with them for 30-something years, and it's the workarounds. You get good people.
Did you go do that UT study? I didn't go to it.
I did not go to the UT and study. Yeah. I registered for the Gulf War thing, and then I go to them yearly for my annual exam. And they also take care. They do my medical care. They prescribe me meds, or if I have a problem, I can go see them, or I'll go see private doctors, for like the TRT and stuff like that. So I do a combination of my stuff and the VA stuff, and I don't mind. I'm the same way. I've always been grateful that they're there, and it's a tough process because of the layers. But if you get the right people, I always feel like there's workarounds. You know what I mean? Like, even like you're saying, leadership. I don't know do you mean like politician level legislative leadership?
Let's just call it in any environment. It's executive leadership
on the ground.
This is my point, and I don't care what you're looking at. It can be the organization that I work for. It can be the one you work for.
Yeah.
It can be anywhere. If you look around and you're in your environment, and the sum is less than the parts, the opposite of what we learn, right?
Right.
The sum is always greater than the parts. If you look around and the sum or the totality of what you're doing is less than the individual parts, your problem is up here.
Yeah.
In the executive level. In
right.
the VA, that could be generals, it can be politicians, it can be bureaucratic executives on the civilian side.
Right.
But the problem aren't the people that are in contact with you. They have some of the best doctors in the world. They're allowed to adopt at any price the best practices, best nurses.
Well, here in Atlanta, they have people from Emory.
Well, God, he's at Shands. This happened when and Shands is
Shands is renowned for
is it really
their
good
surgery
place?
center. Yeah.
So,
well, if your picture's in a frame on the wall at the VA, that's probably where you should start looking at as far as the problem.
Correct. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point I'm making.
I agree too, to a sense. I think they've over legislated it, and and maybe even it's kind of like the what's that old saying? Unintentional problems. Things come from good intentions. I just think they've over legislated. I think a lot of times they can't do things.
Well, and I think sometimes there's a burnout factor as well, where it's like, look, as veterans, regardless of what kind of veteran, whether you're a combat veteran or whether it was you were in for 2.5 years or whatever your enlistment period was, and you're getting these benefits,
right?
Don't go in hot on the VA people, and don't go in for a splinter. Like, please, be aware of what you're doing. Maybe you do need this medical care. But man, don't go in and
there is
demand it.
There is responsibility,
act like a human being,
absolutely, on that side as well.
Yeah.
And I think things have gotten super tribal, and it's like I deserve it. I think there's a little bit of entitlement.
There's some
with
weird
veterans.
Entitlement issues. Yeah, I'm glad you said that word because that's exactly what I was.
I've been sitting in the VA, and I think it's fascinating and. Dallas.
We could do an hour on this right here.
Oh yeah,
because I've never post them making me come into the VA. For all their great studies on GWS and everything else.
Right.
I have never used them because I have always felt like if there's 10 guys in the room, I need at the least save it for guys like him.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wonder if that's a generational thing, because I don't think that's the case with the younger generations now.
No, because
who was it?
I don't think so. I think you got a lot of guys that were from Vietnam and stuff.
Those guys I'm okay with.
Well, but I mean, even they would go in and
You read The Tribe with me, right?
Yeah.
Sebastian Junger.
Yep.
80% of post-traumatic stress disorder, and I am not discounting the fact that they have it.
Yeah.
80% of the veterans that are on some part of disability right now for PTSD are non-combatant veterans.
Right.
And it does not mean it's not real. That's not my point. I think it's real.
Definitely.
100%.
Agreed.
But bureaucracy states that we don't treat that the right way and get them out of the hospital.
Right.
Those people need therapy.
Right.
And they need some things that they could get
Agreed.
if we were maybe privatized. It's to your point. It's the pictures on the wall that are the problem, not the people that are operating.
Well, it is, and it's governmental, and since they're paying for it, and they've got these terrible policies that they want to keep you in, because they've come up with a really cool thing. And Trump pushed this hard. I'm sure maybe you saw it. I saw it, where you can do community care choice.
Choice.
And it was really good when he was in, and when he wasn't, now it's tougher. Yeah, I have to really fight him. But like, I did a colonoscopy, and I did one during Trump up here, because I'm 40 something miles away from the VA, and I was like, I'm not drinking that stuff and then getting on the highway the next morning in Atlanta for 40 something miles in rush hour traffic, because they want to do them early.
So did you get to do it at a community place?
I did.
Like
So
Bridge Mill Auto Care or something?
No, I did it. I did, yeah. Well, that would have been my next option if they weren't, because I would have done that over riding in traffic to the VA, to Claremont, and I have no problem with the VA down there, but it's an all-day practice, and I'm not sitting 2 hours after drinking barium or whatever it is. So, but they did. It was an easy process before. So administrations and leadership have some effect over it. It was an easier process. I still was able to get it here this time, but I had to fight them more. And the workaround came, I think I went through 4 people of talking to them, and they're like, no, you have to come down here. You have to. And I said, no, I've done the exact same thing. And here's why I'm not coming down there, and I'm not going to take this and be in traffic and shit myself, or pull on the road and have to shit on the side of the road. I said, you know how degrading that is? And I'm not an entitled veteran. I wouldn't do that if I had never served. I wouldn't go to it.
That's just
And I don't think that's entitlement at all. Exactly. That's decency.
It's decency. And I was like, I'm not doing it. So y'all need to figure something out. And I actually had given up this time. And like I said, it was a leadership deal. And this time they fought. And I'll tell you the coolest thing, and this is why, like you're talking about, I love the workarounds. A young girl, sweet as could be, called me up and said, I was just following up to see how your colonoscopy went. And I said, well, I haven't had one. They told me I have to come down there. I won't do that. I will only do it up here when I've done it before. And she said, no problem. Who is it? And I told him it was one of Katie's doctors, and Jason and Teresa. Teresa and I actually did it the same day.
And I remember this. Yeah.
It was hilarious. A friend of ours. And it was great. We were in the same cutting up at Northside Hospital. It was wonderful. Well, it was this little girl that called me. And I say little girl, young woman, but she was super sweet, super effective, good at her job, probably still a little idealistic, not burnt out, and said, sir, hold on a second. Let me get them on the line. We'll be on it on a conference call. So fantastic. Called them, got them on a conference call, gave them a number to pay for it, and booked the appointment and said, this is good for your colonoscopy, your pre-colonoscopy, your colonoscopy, and a follow-up. Gave them the number and did all that stuff. Wonderful. Wonderful experience. 3 terrible experiences with guys going, nope, you can't do it. Sorry. Click. Yeah, okay. Well, good. Then I just don't do it, and hopefully nothing comes from that.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It's a problem, and like
I can tell you that generationally, this is where it is. 53 and haven't had one because it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
Right.
A guy that doesn't take advantage of the VA that's been blown up 6 times, and someone that's willing to say, what if it doesn't happen? It doesn't happen.
Right.
And so we're as guilty as being on the other end of this spectrum as people that are entitled and consume this stuff in our place.
Yeah.
Because we simply don't utilize what's available to us, whether it be the VA or anything else.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Maybe you can take the VA off the table.
Just so you know, It's not a pain in the ass, and it is actually, it is wonderful. It was the best sleep I've ever had.
I've never seen somebody that's actually really enjoyed it that much.
No,
I have had everybody that I've ever talked to said it's the best
haven't
sleep ever.
You have
The best
not
sleep,
gone,
yes.
You have not gone to the
But
right
look at
doctor.
this guy. He could do one of these at the vet. He doesn't need to go to Northside.
It's a true fact. If they juice me up with that, I told him, you can take videos and do anything you want with me. I don't care. I'll sign a waiver. You can post it. It was wonderful. And I'm telling you, everybody was cutting up. Our friend Teresa, in our little neighborhood friend group up at the lake, she was in there in the next room, and we were cutting up. Can we do this together? Can we be on our sides and hug? And just, we had a great time. It was so fun. And the sleep really is phenomenal. I haven't slept that good since I was a teenager.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Have you had one?
Yeah, I have. And it was actually, I'm not going to say I enjoyed it, but it wasn't, I was legitimately worried before I went in.
Little anxiety.
And I was like, man, I don't like this. I don't like the idea of this at all.
Well, the idea and the thought of it is
afterwards it was like, oh,
nothing.
Well, and given your story, I would be worried.
Oh,
you
for
might come
sure.
out of there and not be able to feel your ears or something.
Where did y'all scope me?
Yeah, it's like, where did you put that thing?
What happened right here? So, I'm going to run out of time, but I would love for you to follow up with you. You go to Shands, you're paralyzed. You had months and months and months of what I would consider would be PT, because you did no more invasive surgeries at that point, right?
Yeah, really. The funny thing is, didn't do a whole lot of physical therapy then after that. There was only so much I could do. I was issued a walker, and so slowly but surely, and the doctor was steadfast about, hey, man, just give it some time. All the sensation's going to come back in your legs. Everything's going to be fine, right? And he's telling the guy who's got a catheter in him, who can't
Relax,
get out
bro.
of bed. Yeah, it's all going to be fine. Yeah, so I was happy.
your
I am
problem?
relaxed. I can't feel anything.
Yeah, I can't feel anything. I'm comfortably numb. Thank you very much. But he was serious. He was like, look, everything's going to come back. It's like, all right, okay, if you say so. And so they issued me a walker at some point, which I named Walker Texas Ranger, and I hobble around, like I had to get around the hospital to a degree.
Were you married then?
No.
Okay.
No. And so I'm hobbling around, end up getting discharged. And I even went as far as to drive my own car home. Like, to this day, I can't press down on my toes. So it's a
Wow.
mechanical thing. I press down on my heel, and so I can operate the accelerator that way.
So your
Wow.
foot's
And I
just a
can-
lever.
It's just a lever. Yeah, it's all it is. And so I can drive. I can get around.
Yeah.
And so I have adapted to be able to get around as good as I possibly can.
Sure.
And to his credit, a lot of it did come back.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a 10-year-old son, so the most important parts came back.
Which
there's-
I'm sure was a
it's
huge
alive.
concern.
Yeah, it was. And, they make you, in order to get the catheter out.
Was that numb with your
Yeah,
legs
I
and
couldn't
everything?
feel anything.
Nothing below the waist.
Yeah, I couldn't feel a thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so, it was
I
it
have
was
never
terrifying.
experienced anything like that in my life, especially because let me see if you went back in at 32, you're at this point 38 years old, 37 or 38 years old.
Yeah,
You're not a
something like
spring
that.
chicken.
No.
You're staring down the barrel of, I can't feel from the belly button down.
Paralysis.
And that had to be some serious, serious dark times.
Yeah, even to this point, the physical disabilities from that far outweigh anything that I experienced in combat.
Yeah, interesting.
Anything that I experienced in law enforcement.
The recovery was worse than the
Yeah, it was
the
more
cure was worse than
emotionally.
the illness, kind
Yeah,
of deal.
it was definitely more emotionally
Yeah.
debilitating.
Oh yeah, I'm
And
sure.
even to this day, I'll have moments where I'm putting on my shoes, or like my son wants to go out and do something.
Sure.
And it's just like, man, I just can't do that. Like
Yeah.
that, I want to go do jujitsu, which I guess I could,
Yeah.
but it's like the amount of taping and everything that I would have to do of
Yeah.
my feet and ankles and toes. And
Yeah.
at some point it just becomes such a hassle
It outweies the
that it
benefits of
outweighs.
it.
Yeah, like if I'm going to go through this challenge every single time that I want to do something, I'm going to opt not to do it probably. And
That's
there's
right.
a lot of things. So it what it does is it impacts how much you feel like you're living.
Sure.
And so, the skydiving that I'd like to do.
Yeah.
The swimming that I would like to do.
Yeah.
It's like swimming with a paralyzed foot is you do a lot of circles. Like you don't swim easy with a paralyzed foot. And so
I just thought of a name.
I can't-
I'm
I
going to
wanna-
nickname you Kickstand.
kickstand. That's perfect. Because everybody's going to think it's something else, which I love. So go ahead and name me that.
Guys, I have to get out of here. This was great fun. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah.
That was good stuff.
We'll do part 2.
Absolutely.
I want to talk with you later.
All right.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
know a lot of things in life. I know swimming.
You know
This is
swimming.
interesting. Yes, I would love to talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
When was the last time you were in the pool?
Well, we have a pool now. So I do get to swim from time to time, but I don't swim the way I used to swim. So I used to swim like a fish, and now I swim like a
He might can help with that.
hurt fish.
He loves to swim.
Well, I would love any help I can get. So
He uses floaties and kiddie pools, but I mean,
you know, it's whatever you want to be around.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I
kids.
mean, if you can lay on your back and pee in the air and it lands on you,
Right.
you're swimming right.
Look
It's
on the
very, very
whale.
balanced.
Yeah.
So, can we edit that part?
Get that out of there.
Gotta get out of here. Josh, nice to see you, man.
see you, Mikey.
See you, bud.
What are you doing for, like, are you doing any kind of work at that point? I mean, you got to be getting close to getting your real estate license and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so that was part of it. So 2009, as I'm on convalescent leave, for a lack of a better word, TDRL, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Part of the recommendations of the speech therapists and cognitive therapists were, hey, try to enroll in some kind of a class.
Okay.
College class. And that's where I ended up going back to college.
Yeah.
And just get something, do something.
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
keep. If you're not going to be coming to this group,
Be active.
do something to flex your brain muscles.
Makes sense.
Because if you don't, this might be as good as you get for the
Yeah.
rest of your life. And so I did. I went and I looked at some real estate classes. My grandfather was a real estate broker.
Okay.
My
I was
mom is
wondering
a
where the
real
tie-in.
estate agent.
Oh, no kidding.
For years. I wish she would have gotten her broker's license, but she didn't.
Right on.
But she is a wonderful salesperson. My uncle, I think, has a broker's license. He is an appraiser.
So it's in the blood.
So it's definitely in the family genes for
right
sure.
on.
And like I said, construction wise, I had built houses with my dad.
Right on.
I have done all kinds of things around construction sites, and so
Fascinating how, like, those things, how they sort of bond us and tie us together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What an interesting deal. Like, our orbits kind of hit, and then you kind of like that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we don't even know why. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like that guy. It's military, it's construction, it's real estate, it's all that.
yeah, there's a different level of knowledge when you walk into a house and you know what's behind the walls.
Yeah.
It changes
True.
your perspective of the house. It's like, okay,
100%.
we bought a house that was a short sale. It needed a ton of work,
Yeah.
but it was a really well built house.
Right on.
And knowing
And you know that.
knowing that going in, it makes it an easier decision.
Sure.
And I know my abilities. I know my ability to not only do the work, I know my ability to supervise the work.
Right.
I know what's supposed to be done. So if I see something going sideways
Yeah.
as the work is being done,
Right.
I'll stop it right there
Yeah.
and call out the problem and course correct it.
Yeah.
Like no big deal.
Right.
You can't expect other people to do that.
Of course.
They're not going to know how to do it.
Well,
And so
they don't have that knowledge base.
they don't have the knowledge base. And so it's always been something that I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
And so, it was a natural progression to go into real estate, even though it seems like if you were to look at my resume,
Yeah.
it's 22 years of law enforcement and combat.
Right.
And then you're just going to go and be a real estate agent.
Right.
It's like, la-di-da.
Well,
That's
one
like,
of the
man,
things
this guy did lose his mind.
Yeah, right. But that's one of the things I love about these podcasts.
Yeah.
It sort of ties it in. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
hopefully, our agents and other folks that are looking, and especially potential agents, look at this and go, what is Josh doing at Vibe? You know, and why is even Josh there? You know,
That's
with
right.
that story,
Yeah.
and they see it. Makes sense.
Well,
when you tie
and-
that history together. You get to know people
Yeah.
get to know you and know why now.
Well, and to go a little deeper, one of the things that I tell real estate agents all the time, and there's probably, hopefully they'll see it,
Yeah,
see this podcast and
Yeah.
go, yeah, man, he told me that. Like, real estate isn't for everybody.
Right.
You're not
Oh.
not everybody loves selling houses.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody loves farming a neighborhood. Not everybody loves contacting their sphere.
Sure.
Like all these buzzwords that you hear, a lot of
course.
people just hate it.
yeah,
And they get a real estate license so that they can say that they're doing something with themselves
yeah.
at a party.
Right.
And or in social settings like at the golf club or at the tennis club or with their friends or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, look, if you hate it, it's too expensive. Like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know that this is the thing. And for me, it took me beyond selling houses. Like, I've sold plenty of houses.
Sure.
I've listed plenty of houses.
Sure.
What I really geek out about is human performance at this point.
Yeah.
Because I love human performance. I love getting a hold of something and making it grow.
Right on.
And if it's a person, great. If it's a business, great.
Right on.
Like, I just love the idea of maximizing the effectiveness of a person, a business, whatever.
Right.
And so why am I at Vibe? That's why.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be in a place where I can affect positive change
Right.
in people.
Well, and there's a lot of fruitful fields.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, there's tons of them.
It's at a perfect place for that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, look, the previous position I held in real estate, this was the best part of it.
Yeah.
You know, the corporate structure and everything was fine,
Sure.
right? It was adequate. Did it allow me to do all the things that I wanted to do? No.
Right.
And I really got a sense of what I liked to do.
Well, there's
when
certain
I was doing
levels, right? Yeah, and so there's certain levels, and I always say there's people who are builders, and there's people who are closers, or finishers. And what I mean by that is, like, you build a business up to a certain point, and you can build it. You can affect a lot of change. You can get it to a certain point, and then there's guys that want to be on a corporate structure, kind of like where you were. That it's already a big business. They want to come in and affect change on that side, how they finesse and move those kind of levers
Sure.
on a bigger, and you're more of a builder. And I'm the same way. I like being on the ground level, you know. And maybe it's grunt stuff, you know what I mean? That's why you like being
Could
a
be.
grunt. You know, affect that change there instead of being some planner
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Well,
you
I think
know?
ideally I get more satisfaction from sitting down with an agent, sitting down with another broker,
Yeah.
talking things through,
Yeah.
troubleshooting, coming
Yeah.
up with an effective plan,
Right.
an executable plan, something
Right.
they're willing to do.
Right.
Because a plan's nothing if they're not willing to do it.
True.
Ask Buffini.
Yeah, true.
How many people have gone through Buffini's course and they still suck at real estate?
Yeah, true.
It's not Buffini.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 100%.
Like, you suck at real estate because you're not willing to do the things that Buffini said.
That's right.
Like, if you were willing to do those things, you'd be great at real estate.
Of course.
But there's something about it that's prohibiting you from doing it. And so if you can get past that,
Do you think you can unlock change like that in
absolutely.
people? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know what makes people tick.
Yeah, right on.
And it's very individual. Like,
For sure.
You know, these coaching platforms that people have,
Right.
and they do it for the masses.
Yeah.
It's very vanilla.
Very.
You know,
Has to be.
it's Windows 365.
Yeah.
It's not. It's for everybody,
Right.
but you don't get truly good at it until you drill down to what you're going to do
On an individual level.
on an individual level.
Yeah,
So if,
right on.
like, look, door knocking, if you don't like it, don't do it.
You're right.
But do something.
Yeah.
Like, what do you not mind doing? Like,
Yeah.
what are you willing to do? What makes you
What
excited
do you like
to go
less,
to work?
maybe?
Yeah, I mean, if you get
If
to
you don't
that-
like any of this,
look, if you
then
get to
what do
that
you like?
conversation, go do something else. But look, because you're in the wrong line of work. This
Right.
line of work is all about repetition.
Yeah.
It's all about serious work. It's all about actual grunt work. And we've talked about this before too. Is it happens in the trenches. Like, look, everybody can talk about the prestige of real estate and how you can make millions of dollars in real estate. It's all
Awards
true.
dinners and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, the galas.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Right.
But they're few and far between.
Right.
The work happens in between the galas.
Yeah, the Marine Ball and the Ranger Balls and all those different galas and things like
Yeah.
that are great, but 99.9% of the work is just grunt work.
Dude, if you're only in the Marine Corps because you like dress blues,
That's a tough road to hoe.
you might as well go ahead and get out because, man, figure out a way to get out.
Right.
It's not that.
Well, I love that because one thing I like, and I think we G-haul on that, is it's a business and you have to work it.
Yep.
And if you're willing to work it, it's fruitful. But ain't that the case with everything in life?
Well, that's just it. Is there's a set of common denominators.
Yeah.
And if you look at things, and I'm always talking about the 40,000 foot view.
Right.
And it's like, look, there's no end to all of the different coaching platforms that are out there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Have a look at them.
Right.
Like even, Echelon Front,
Yeah.
Jocko has
Yeah.
built this incredible thing.
Yes.
And it's something that I love.
Right.
I'm looking at these guys, they're wearing cool black shirts, gray trousers.
Right.
Like they all look like they're going to break down your front door.
Right.
And like they're awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, wait a second. What he's doing is he's breaking things down his way
Yeah.
and making it consumable
Yeah.
and easy to digest
Absolutely.
and putting his spin on an old classic
That's right.
because it's nothing new.
Well, the funny thing is most of those are not new. And I like what you said about, find out what works for you. So, and that even applies to those leadership platforms, right? Like Cardone,
Oh, yeah, 10 exit.
10 Exit,
For sure.
Cardone, Jocko, Buffini, Tom Ferry. I mean, there are a ton of different. Pick which one that speaks to you and get that and run with it.
Yeah.
But like you said, you have to do something.
Yeah.
Which I love human stories. And one of the things I love about this is people get to know you.
Yeah.
Do something when you were going through it doesn't matter what it is. So you were going through your therapy, your rehab and all your stuff. And what do they tell you? Do something.
Yeah, do something.
Same thing here in real estate.
Yep.
Do something. Oh, you hate that? No problem. What do you like? Oh, I don't know. Pick something. Do it. Do something. You can't just sit around and do nothing and expect results from it.
Yeah.
So pick something and if you want to do a leadership. I love the leadership platforms. I love the psychology of it. But you have to be willing to do it. I think I see people doing they're serial business club people and they're serial leadership course people and all this.
Yeah.
And I get that, but you have to lock onto something that speaks to you. And maybe it takes a few of them. You know what I mean? Maybe Grant Cardone, he's a little arrogant, he's a little cocky, so maybe that ain't the guy for you, or maybe it is. Or Jocko, maybe he's a little too military and direct. That's maybe not the guy.
Maybe
for
not
you.
your cup of tea.
Yeah, maybe Tom Ferry's the guy that you dig. He's a little more soft spoken, and he's that coach side, and he's whatever it is, pick something that you can do and just do it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I latched on to Echelon Front. I think Jocko's got maybe the best thing going today. Because that's me.
Yeah.
That's my bias.
Sure.
Is I love the militaristic and the paramilitary way that he teaches things.
Of course.
And everybody thinks military, and they envision a drill instructor with the campaign cover and yelling at people.
Right.
Go to anything Jocko related, it's the antithesis of that.
Right.
It's intense.
Yeah.
It's high speed.
Yeah.
It is all of the right things. It's the right amount of aggression. It's the right amount of hey man, no excuses.
Right
Own
on.
it. Own everything that you do.
Right on.
And anybody who's ever gotten coached by me has heard those words. Like, hey, how about you take some responsibility for all the things that you do and don't look outside, don't blame other people. It's one of the things that Jocko just preaches that constantly, and it's effective.
Well, end of the day, I think accountability is laid at the feet of the person doing it.
Absolutely.
And that's what you can control and affects more of your success or happiness in life, and not other things. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great way. Well, listen, I'm happy to have you at Vibe. I love it.
I'm thrilled to be here.
I hope we do some big things. So cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Thank you for the podcast, and we'll do part 2 and get Mike involved.
Yeah, I
too.
want to hear more about Mike.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to get to know him better.
He's got an interesting story. He's a Persian Gulf War vet, and runs a stair company, and so loves and he's on the leadership side, so he's got some good leadership values and things like we're talking about.
Yeah, it was really evident in the mastermind that he thinks about things a different way.
He
from
does.
a different angle, and he's very, very, very engaged with how he thinks about things.
He very much is, and he's really, we've sort of done an informal like book club and study of different things, and he loves to drill down on those things, and I love that, that we can do those things. But yeah, so we'll get him on. We'll do this again.
Well, you guys are both fascinating people. I mean, and that's one of the reasons I'm here.
Wow.
And the integrity part of it as well.
Yeah.
Like, you walk into a lot of firms and it's like, man, look, this is a brokerage. They're here to make money. And it's like, well, vibe to a degree, but it's really about personal development, and it's really about doing the right thing by people. And it's really about developing the agent and not developing. It's not selfish. It's an unselfish firm to be at.
Right.
And I think that's what I love the most about it. And you could just trust the leadership here.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because that's the truth. I mean, one thing about it is we love process, and sometimes I feel like we don't do things well in terms of monetizing our metrics to doing the recruiting or certain things like we do the masterminds, which Tim's involved in. You're involved in. We do, and I think those things sometimes we're doing it because it makes people better and it bonds you together with people. And I think if you're good at the process, I think success comes from that. So I don't focus on just, okay, I'm going to do this direct correlation. That's that, like you said, most brokerages do it. That's fine if that's their deal. I think life is short, and I want to bond with people. Yeah. I want to have discussions like this where we bring out personal stuff, or masterminds where we bring out personal and we bond, and we all become friends and do business together. And hopefully through that type of process, there's a leadership and a caring and a why,
right? And
we live a better life from it.
Yep.
Because I feel like kind of you, I'm grateful every day, because they told us when we got done with the Gulf War, before we pulled back and came home, they said, we had planned for 60% losses. And so I just think about that, and I'm like, I'm just grateful to be here, because I would have been part of those 60%, being a lower enlisted combat soldier. I mean, I'm squarely in that number, and I'm here. So then what do we do, man? Let's make the best of it.
Let's live.
Let's
live the hell out of life.
Let's live the hell out. Right. And you have to work and do things. Yeah. So in work, how do we make the best of that? And it's kind of like, I think that military thing, which Tim will understand too, man, you cut up even in the crappiest of times, which this is not that at all, doing business.
No, far from it.
Yeah, far from it. But even in the crappiest times, you cut up, you have fun, and you learn to bond and have relationships. And it's,
Well, and look, people like us, we can understand that, hey, man, times could stand to get a little tougher.
Right.
Like, because it does create a better camaraderie.
Oh, for sure.
You will become a better neighbor. You'll become a better dad. You'll become a better friend.
No doubt.
If there's a little bit of adversity in life as well. There has to be a challenge.
Fat and happy makes you a little screwy.
It does.
Would you agree to that?
Yeah, it makes you lazy in life.
I think that's where our country kind of is. We've gotten fat and happy, and things are way too easy. So we focus on things that are so inconsequential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say all the time that. Hold on, let me get on the mic.
Yeah,
come on the mic.
Yeah, come join us.
Hi.
Who are you?
I am Tim Cahill with Mesmerized Media, and I'm sitting here listening to you guys, and love it, and of course served in the military as well. But I have a saying that I coined several years ago, and that is, I think God needs to knock us on our asses sometimes so we can remember how good it is to stand.
Agreed.
And it just goes to what you guys are talking about. The fact is, it's human nature to take things for granted. And, people sit there and say, well, why am I going through this? If we've got such a good God, why am I going through this?
Right.
Because it's such a good God, and you need to wake up and realize it ain't as bad as you think it is.
That's exactly right. I agree.
All right, bye.
It wasn't much, but it was powerful.
I was going to say, right on point. I appreciate that. Well, I think that's exactly right. I mean, life is made to be lived, and there is even silver lining in dark clouds, or, there's beauty in the ugliest of times. And, we've all, at this point in our lives, we've all been through seriously tough and traumatic things. And
That's true.
life is still good. I mean, you still can be grateful, you know. It's I used to coach my son in football from 5 years old up to whatever, and up till high school. And you know, I remember telling these kids, especially the ones that hadn't played, is you're going to get hit. And you're going to feel like you're dying, especially the first time, because you just don't have any frame of reference. You're going to think you're dying, and you just got the wind knocked out of you. You're going to be okay. And I can tell you all that. And, you know, kids are still smart, even young kids. And, you know, they understand what I'm saying, but until you do it, you don't know.
True.
You know, till you woke up in that hospital and you couldn't feel your legs. Now it's time to get real.
Yeah.
You know, and you spin out and you get spun up, but then you just go, okay, well, I'm just going to have to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
You know,
It was when the doctor told me I wasn't going to walk again that I knew I was going to. It
right on.
was like, well, that's not happening.
And isn't that one of your proudest moments that you're like in the shittiest of times?
Yeah.
Like that's your whole life, because at that point, so you didn't have, you know, you were hoping for a normal life, you know,
Yeah.
and there is no normalcy to that now.
No.
You know, such a change, and you can make it good. You know, people figure out how to make it good, but you're in that turmoil or whatever. But you said, you know what? I'm not going to check out. I'm gonna do what I got to do.
Yeah, that was their first thing was, hey, man, this is all this is going to come back. And then the story changes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, by the way,
Right.
you may not get this back.
Yeah,
because it took a long time.
Sure. Oh, of course.
It took a really long time, like longer than he thought. Like he thought it was going to be 2 or 3 days,
Oh,
and it was just going to be back.
yeah.
And here I was at a week and a half out, and I still was feeling nothing. Like they were sticking needles
That is
in my legs,
That is a
and I couldn't
long
feel
time
anything.
to be paralyzed.
And he was like, dude, this isn't looking good.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the fact that he said that, and my thing was in my head was counterpunch.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, I
Right
refuse
on.
to accept that.
Right.
And so even if I had to get around with a walker, I was going to do something. And
Gonna
I
make
remember
this
taking
happen.
a walk in the neighborhood, going around a big circle
Yeah.
with a walker.
Right.
And it would
Texas
looked
Walker Ranger.
Walker Texas Ranger, man. You had the tennis balls on the back legs and everything. Like,
Well, you
know,
fit
just
good
getting
in
around.
Florida. Like
Yeah, man.
There was a lot of people in
Yeah, all I
Florida.
needed is dark socks and Birkenstocks, and I was good to go. Or Crocs. Yeah. And dude, that was basically my life up to that point. It's like somebody's going to tell you, hey, this is going to be a really big challenge, and are you going to rise up to the challenge or not?
Right on.
And that's just the kind of person I've been. I mean, you
Well, I
know, kind
love
of a
that.
gritty kid. And
You do.
So,
And we talked
it's
about it
good.
in the mastermind. And Tim, your story was in the mastermind, you know, was a tough week for you last week, you know, and you learn how to, like you said, get knocked on your ass. Okay. I got to get back up.
All right, if you're going to draw me back in, here
I'm
I
gonna
come.
say- I'm not right.
Yeah, no, it's funny, but when it all boils down to it, I tell people all the time, it's simple. Not necessarily easy, but it's simple. It's
yeah.
mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you look at things? And the way, for me, my defining moment,
Yeah.
when I was 14 years old, I've told you the story before, but when I was
Oh,
14
yeah.
years old, my brother passed away. He was 9.5 years old.
Yep.
He had a brain disease, sick for a long time, listened to his heart when it stopped. It affected me very negatively for several years. And then when I think I was 19 years old, working doing a charity event, ran into this lady who had a terminally ill child who had passed away, and I'd known her for several years. And
Yeah.
back then, everybody knew me as Timmy. And she's like, Timmy, I'm pretty sure you would have turned out to be a fine young man regardless. You got a good foundation with parents and stuff. But she said, I can't help but think that Chris's life and death have affected you in such a positive way, made you so much more of a compassionate person. And I went home that night, tossed and turned, cried a few times, couldn't sleep. I finally fell asleep, and I woke up the next day, and I'm like, God, I'm so tired of being sad that he died, when in reality I'm happy that he lived.
Right on.
And what happened there was, it was simple. And actually, that lady made it easy for me. It was simple and easy, but it was like, do you want to be happy or do you want to be sad? And it's so cliche, but is the glass half full or half empty? And
Right.
ever since then, I'm the glass is half full. I mean, like I can
yeah.
find the positive in anything. Now, like last week, I was having a little bit of a rough week because,
course.
you know, a young lady who,
Lakeland Riley.
my son took her to homecoming and was really good friends with her, so that affected us. And then my business development manager, cancer is spreading, and just a rough week. And sometimes it takes a little time to figure out what that positive is. You know what I mean, or see the positive in it.
Oh, of course.
Sometimes it takes an angel to point it out to you.
You're right, and that, I mean, was that woman not such an angel to like? I mean, like, here's a funny thing: I don't remember that lady's name.
Wow,
I don't remember who it is.
Think how
but I remember what
she was on your life.
Exactly, and I feel bad because I'm like, that lady doesn't know what she did for me that day. I couldn't tell you who she was.
But those are the greatest things when people don't get credit. I love thinking about things that you can't put a metric on. And I think about this. How many times have you impacted somebody, or you have impacted somebody, and they don't remember you, but they remember what you said? I think about all the time I've coached kids, and I just pray. I'm like, please let something I said, because I say lots of stupid stuff, right? And just please let that be impactful in that kid's life. And I know it was at some point. I'm not going to ever get credit, and I'm never going to know what it was. But like you said, do something. Doing something positive and impactful. And that lady did that. And that's amazing. And it's actually better that you don't know her, because the best things in life are where people aren't getting credit, but it was super impactful.
I have another story that's even better, because I did know that lady at some point in time, right? But so when my first son was born, he's 22 years old now, and he's in his 4th year at KSU. He's not a senior. I like to tell people he's in his 4th year. But anyway, when he was first born, I actually took parenting too seriously. And I know some people would be like, how can you take parenting too seriously? Simple. I was so focused on parenting and making sure that I did everything right that I was doing things wrong.
Of course.
And my biggest thing was I wanted to be strict and make sure I raised my kid right, that every time he did something wrong, Hunter, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, like, and I used so much anger when I would punish him or get onto him about something. And I was in Pensacola. He was 3 years old, I think. It was me, my wife, and my mom and dad, and my only son at the time, Hunter. And he was misbehaving, and I've always been real big. Hey, respect other people. We're in a restaurant. And I'm like, I'm talking to him, and I'm doing this, and I was so much anger and all this stuff.
Right.
And I had this young man come up to me. Now, at the time, I must have been 28, 29 years old.
Sure.
And I had this like 19-year-old young man come up to me and said, can I talk to you for just a second? And I'm like, sure. And he goes, can we step out here? And I'm like, yeah, what's this about? Complete stranger.
Yeah.
And he began to sit there and talk to me about how when his parents raised him, one of the things that they were really big on was never using anger to discipline. He's like, my parents were very strict, but like if I did something wrong, they'd be like, all right, this is your punishment, and go. And he goes, and I just saw you getting onto your son and blah, blah, blah. And let me tell you, the whole time this guy's talking to me, I'm like, whatever, shut up. I'm trying to be nice and not beat you up because you're pissing me off.
Sure.
Who are you?
Yeah. You're correcting me, and ego comes into that.
Listen, teenager.
Right.
Okay, what do you know? I'm 10 years older than you, blah, blah, blah.
How
dare
stuff,
you?
Right.
Yeah, and all this stuff. And it just so happened that we were having breakfast, and then we were driving home. So I had a 5.5 hour drive home, sit there and drive and think about what this guy said to me. And after a while, I started, like, I'm crying. My wife was like, what's the matter? And I'm like, am I that bad of a dad? She's like, no, sweetheart, you're not. But, you know, you do get angry a lot, and you're patient. You don't have patience, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that guy was put in my life for a reason, to give me that gut punch. But I have no idea what that guy's name is.
Right.
That was 19 years ago.
How great was
and
that?
I can remember
some
that.
Dude's
yeah.
willing to, because he's probably thinking, this guy's probably going to cuss me out or could punch me. Or
I might be missing my teeth by the time the sentence is over.
Right.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm the type of person that will listen to anything, and I'm not like I am not afraid to get in a fight. Being in the military, being a police officer, I'm not afraid at all.
Right.
But in the same token, only if I have to. Blah blah
Of
blah.
course, yeah.
But there's a lot of people that would have punched the guy.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Who the hell are you talking to me like that? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm not going to lie. That's
Yeah.
how I felt inside, but I
Right.
just didn't externalize it. But
Yeah.
what a powerful moment. So
Right on.
we should probably end this soon because I think our memory cards are running out of.
I think so.
It's going to
It's
catch
been
on fire.
It's been 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Has it really?
Yes.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. So,
Cameras. It's about how much time is left on the recording.
wow.
And it's funny, I have a 1 terabyte card in that one.
Yeah.
There's 25 hours left in that one.
We could probably talk that long too.
Yeah.
Well, listen, this was a great thing. Thank you for jumping
very
in.
much.
Oh, yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and everything else. So yeah, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
this
right
is
on.
awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Lucky
We'll do.
opportunity.
Thanks
we'll
for
do
not kicking me off when I jumped in.
No, I appreciate you jumping in. I loved it because it's great stories. I mean, they're super impactful. So yeah, listen, thanks everybody, and you'll see you next time. Bye.